I'm missing something.
just the hard rocking intro. Hey, welcome to the hardest rocking stream on YouTube.
I don't know what that was, but it was great.
Yeah, I just found it sitting there in the Posh was like, "Oh, just click go live," and I was like, "No, I'm going to click this button that says it's going to do a 30-second hard rocking intro first."
Oh, that's the name of
Yeah.
it. Missing a couple of instruments that tend to be common in rock, but
Yeah.
but it's good. I'm not complaining about it.
Yeah. So, well, Emmanuel's here. Dr. Crispy's here. Well, Emmanuel says, I have the perhaps arrogant idea that a specific video on normative authority would be very useful.
I
Like
get that.
like having a non-exhaustive list of different elements that are part of a worldview and how they relate to the normative authority. Yeah, that guy Craig, this is what he's referring to, because I released my video. I tried to make an edited video. I put it up there, and that guy Craig, he just really doesn't understand his own worldview at all well enough, and then has kind of pithy remarks to make about Andrews, and has no idea what that's about either. So
he's legitimately stupid.
yeah, I think so.
I don't think he's pretending. I think he literally has. Apparently, he has something about nuclear physics or whatever, some type of degree, and I can only conclude like he can juggle like Brahms's, model of the atom like 3 at a time, and they're like, wow, there you go.
I've been thinking this a lot, though. It's quite. You can be quite deceived by people on the internet, especially when they have kind of honed their debate skills into thinking that they're more intelligent than they are.
Well, they have a posh British accent.
Yeah, but I think we're often tricked. Who's that girl? Like, oh, Andrew was also debating that girl about porn, and I think that girl's legitimately a moron. But
I don't know if that was the one that was on Thursday, I believe, or if there was the one. I just remember that she was Jewish and she was drunk.
No, that's not the one I'm thinking of. I'm talking about the one that's very recently.
Right, but yeah, I think it was on Thursday. Something about
okay. I didn't know she was drunk.
No, not that one. I'm talking about a one from like a month ago or so.
Okay.
And like legitimately, I'm not even saying it to be insulting. I know there are caps on people's capacities of the cognitive variety, but it's embarrassing to watch. Not to mention that Craig is insufferable.
That's what the big problem is he's got that really strong mid-wit energy.
Oh yeah.
It's that kind of like where he's like going to sit and call flat earthers and so on ridiculously stupid, and he's going to be
Sky Daddy in the
opening. And he said Sky Daddy, and he approaches it like he's looking down all the time. He was saying things to Andrew like he didn't he debate Jim Bob. And he said, and he called Jim Bob low IQ in the middle of the debate, and it's like you're just
to be fair, like Jim Bob called him, told him, "Calm down, little man." Like 20 minutes into it. So, but yeah, I think they're trying to emulate Christopher Hitchens. They just don't have the verbosity for it.
Yeah,
he had plenty of charisma. Well,
yeah, the charisma in particular.
He only had charisma. That's all there is to anything he talks about in this regard. And much more astute in terms of, for example, talking about politics and corruption and stuff. There, he is much more factual. But they're trying to, especially with his dialect, like his accent, it doesn't help. So, someone with like a received English speaking, the King's English, there's an authority to it. But a Yorkie, not like he was a scouse trying to speak down on you, not going to help. In fact, it does the opposite. What if you have a short attention span? It's not about having a short attention span. It's about you having to talk 3 minutes not to make a point, to not make a point, uh, and then complain when people interrupt you. You can't talk in a formal debate like that, So if it's a conversation, sure, but like time is capped for.
whilst clearly missing the point. That's like it's when they filibuster, and I don't even think they know they're filibustering, but in essence they're filibustering, and then they're not actually getting the point at all in any.
No. So you saw when Andrew said, "Okay, steel man my argument."
Mm.
You didn't
I,
make an argument. I can't do Northern English accents. I can say "pers in gravy." That's about it from me. Um, but he couldn't do it because he doesn't get the point, and he does. And now this is peak midwittery. Like the common human experience. Like, that's the most vague thing I've ever heard of.
yeah. We as a society have come to certain conclusions.
Yeah. Okay. So right, but they also then say, I don't know, retroactively we can judge people. Okay, people came to different conclusions like 100 years ago, so that was the moral thing to do. And that's the
Mhm.
point. He keeps treating it. There is a statement like morality is a technology, right? It develops over time. Another thing about technology is it can also break down. As we saw with the fall of the Roman Empire, a lot of things that were accessible to Romans was not accessible to its inheritors. The Bronze Age collapse. Uh,
Mhm.
the big reason for that is when you have.
Of course, Tartaria.
That's a given. They had space lasers, but you have an empire that can get copper from Cyprus, and Cyprus's name, yeah, Cyprus is literally named after copper. That's what the name of it is, and then tin from modern day Afghanistan, right? And then
Mm.
you have an empire spanning both. Not that Cyprus was owned by it, but they could purchase it, right? And then you develop a technology for producing bronze. So when the empire collapses, the supply lines are broken and the technology is lost. It took quite a while to rediscover means of obtaining lead after the fall of the Roman Empire. And
It must be a very odd experience living through a time like that, where
yeah,
you
we have it. We
experience.
just don't know how to do it again.
Yeah, yeah.
That's sort of like 40K.
Yeah. Well, Joe Rogan actually had a good bit about that, didn't he? He was people think they're smart. It was one of his comedy specials. He was like, we all think we're smart because we have smartphones. He's like,
Mhm.
no. You have access to smart things, but you're not
Yeah, yeah,
actually. And he's like, he's like, I'm convinced there's going to be a day where all of this just falls apart, and no one's going to know how to build a smartphone. No
yeah,
one's going to know how to fix the internet. And
yeah,
like it
yeah.
was.
But honestly, that's been a thing throughout history. That's why empires tended to make progress. Some empires did, so others didn't. The Mongols didn't really achieve much in terms of producing technology because that wasn't their thing. They were a warrior
Mhm.
civilization purely, whereas others like the Persians, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, even the Indians would be strange to think about it today, but even they could produce things that were smart, other than scams. China, and then obviously Greece and Rome over here. And then, strangely, I don't know how we got to this.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
what happens when people talk to me. It's so strange to think that the Aztecs had so little technology in terms of metallurgy, right? Because
Yeah.
they produced very sophisticated systems of irrigation, of water supply, construction, building temples, etc. But then the Spanish come over and they've got like very advanced steel, and you're trying to hit them with clubs with pieces of obsidian, glued to them. So yeah, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, so anybody watching who's already seen the video I put up, you're going to be seeing more of the same debate. We're going to talk a bit about this debate that Andrew had with, what's he called? Craig, FTFE of official. I guess he usually debates flat earthers.
Yeah.
And that was the excuses he started to fall back on towards the end. He came in full of gusto, but by the end he was very sort of small, and he was like, "This is my first live debate, guys. I think I've done really well."
Yeah,
Like,
but he's infuriating. Big props to Andrew for keeping his composure. Like, if you behave like that in any like normal human setting, like you're getting a couple of teeth knocked out. Oh, look, the Irishman.
I don't know how to use
Ego.
thing yet. I'm just figuring it out. This new streaming service. There we go. Look at that. Well, where'll I put us? Over there or down here? I think here.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think this is best.
Yeah. I should definitely be on the right and you on the left.
Yeah, well, I don't need to pretend. You need all the help you can get because you're a communist. A comrade on me left and another one on me right.
So yeah, okay, we'll skip forward a little bit to Andrew's. The start was funny because he came and he did a speech
a market where people
about how we shan't be cowed down. Our free speech will always stand. Right, it was this kind of attitude, and I love that Andrew didn't let it go because Alex O'Connor didn't turn up, right?
Yeah,
because
I'm
he
going
got
to step into my moderator seat.
Britain's AOC, as David would put it.
Britain's AOC. Yeah.
I didn't even think about Alex O'Connor. I just thought it was he's a young fellow and stuff. Britain's AOC is so funny.
Hey, James, can I say something just before we start?
Of course.
Great. So I was pretty authoritative when they was talking about free speech. We will not be cowed to these people when it comes to free speech. But he was. And the Christians showed up, and they didn't. They didn't show up. He didn't show up. He bowed to the threats. We didn't bow to the threats. So, no, I'm not willing to give you the slack. Sorry.
Woo!
That atheist fellow
10-minute
came
opening
up,
statement
and talked about some rubbish about, we are from the atheist organization, and people start clapping. No one even clapped. It just Andrew said boo.
I heard that as well. Yeah. Classic. Yeah.
Yep.
Andrew gives no quarter. It's really funny. So, there he gets into his opening, and his opening was great.
and
It kind of like never gets past the opening because Craig really doesn't seem to understand it, nor have anything with which to contend with it. It would have been really interesting to see Craig actually try and answer each thing that Andrew put forward. So what Andrew does here, to anybody who hasn't seen it, is he goes through all the points of the manifesto of secular humanism and then comes up with a
modifier.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Interpretation and like he extrapolates like a potential interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah. And he doesn't actually try and contend with any of them.
Cheers.
Craig.
How do you say cheers in Gaelic?
Sláinte.
A sláinte.
Yeah, sláinte. It means health, but
but most of them do. By the way.
Yeah.
Andrew, the floor is all yours for your 10-minute opening.
It's like a funeral in here. You guys, you can make some noise. It's okay, right? You can. Yeah, there you go. Gonna enjoy yourselves today. It's perfectly acceptable. It's all right. All right.
Can people hear the
The
video
Humanist
well?
Manifesto, which is actually called Humanism.
Guys, can you all hear the video well?
Because to me, you're quite a bit louder than the video. So
I'm louder than the video.
no. That doesn't mean that's bad. Maybe the video is just quiet.
The video seems to be. People can tell me now in the chat. Health as we chug alcohol. Yeah. So, guys, how are you experiencing this? Am I significantly louder than the video? Because obviously I can turn my mic down if that's what's going on.
Say slancha for
Slancha. Yes, can hear
it's
you.
okay.
And its aspirations. Humanist Manifesto 3. Blah, blah, blah. It's got a stupid title. It's terribly written. And it's complete nonsense. And no human being should ever adhere to it for the purpose of human flourishing or anything else, yet some do, like Craig here. Its greatest issue is simply that it only makes vague, descriptive claims and not one prescription for what it should actually do. So I propose a new revised manifesto, and I'm calling it Humanist 4, Society and Its Consequences. Note, while drinking in my cramped hotel room last night at an airport Holiday Inn, James, I wrote this manifesto, which is the
Note how James laughs at this joke, but doesn't laugh at the very next joke.
culmination of 100 Wilson generations of drunken reason, Irish sensibilities, and just a drab of single malt whiskey. Now, the quote-unquote normal modern-day debate viewer, who we would just refer to in the Crucible as not very smart, and, you know, kind of fun to philosophically torture, much like a cat and mouse, gently severing their soul from their body piece by agonizing piece, metaphorically, of course, not to mention being better than them in basically every aspect of life. Luckily, the Crucible's here, in case the low IQ, MDD liberal scum wants to whine and cry for another 2 hours of Q&A after their man-humping Earth Daddy fled the room with his boy toy tears in his eyes while his dress was flowing. I don't think we're going to see a repeat of that this time, though, right? Okay, great. Let's launch into my new and improved Humanist Manifesto. Craig will be unable to refute any of my prescriptions based on his manifesto if he only uses his manifesto. Instead, he will require a normative framework to supplement that manifesto. He has to do this because without using the manifesto, what are we even arguing about? I can refute his prescriptions based on Christian ethics, church tradition, and effects to society, which is what this debate's about. What is best for society? But he's unable to apply that standard with the Humanist Manifesto itself. He must appeal to the sources outside this manifesto. So humanism has no real, measurable, actual, conceivable effect on society, yet Christianity does. He offers descriptions.
Is this right, Posh?
So Živjeli, that's not my dialect. That's what you will hear in Montenegro and Bosnia from the Serbs there. So we just say Živjeli. So that J after the V, that one is just removed. But yeah, that and that means may we live.
This is me trying to speak Serbian earlier.
Hej Sava, hoćeš da idemo uživo večeras i pokrijemo Andrew debatu na debate?
You sound Croatian, which bodes poorly for you.
What do you think? How did I do?
Not bad at all. I mean, and I appreciate the effort. You know, you could have just gone through like AI, like some dork, and done that. Yeah, actually, Serbian is pretty easy to pronounce, except a couple of things a bit more difficult, like the ch and ch. People don't hear much difference. It seems to me when I try to explain. But ch is like a ciao in Italian.
Okay.
And ch is like chair. So those are like things that are a bit more difficult. That first letter you see in Živjeli is ž. So that's one of the.
No, that's an X. You're mistaken.
Yeah, that's the Cyrillic one is like an X with a line through it. It's a bit wider.
Yeah.
but that's a zh.
Oh, sorry, the other one. Yeah. I was just joking.
So the first one is Cyrillic, the other one is Latin script. And we use both, although technically Serbian uses the Cyrillic script. The Latin one was introduced when we had a country together with Croats and Slovenians. So, we had to learn both. So did they, but they are stupid.
Offer prescriptions. So here it is. I'm going to read to you the tenets of humanism according to the Humanist manifesto itself, their own words, and then apply a reasonable and logical prescription to each tenet. Now, Craig has to debunk each of my prescriptions using the Humanist manifesto or he loses. Why does he lose? Well, because I can debunk the stated prescriptions easily using Christian ethics, and he can't debunk or even successfully argue against one using the Humanist manifesto. He requires something else. Do you see the problem here? First tenet, Humanist manifesto. Knowledge of the world is derived by observation, experiment, and rational analysis. Humanists find that science is the best method for determining this knowledge as well as solving problems and developing beneficial technologies. My prescription based on that. The birth rate is low, therefore all women must be forcibly bred. Experiments must be conducted on them to maximize fertility and thereby maximize human flourishing because science, and that is good. Humans, this is tenet 2 of the manifesto, humans are an integral part of nature, the result of unguided evolutionary change. Humanists recognize nature as self-existing. We accept our life as all and enough distinguished things as they are from the things we might wish or imagine them to be. So my prescription based on this vague nonsense, because humans are unguided, they require guidance. Maximum force from the state can lend itself to maximum results. People ought to accept things as they are, and that requires ending all charity to avoid giving them false hope, and that is good.
Well, so far, everything seems good, right?
Yeah, my favorite part is that there are legitimate points to be made on all of these from a view, like saying end charity. It's not very good to send a lot of food to Africa. Because it means their agriculture will never develop because you can't compete with free food. And you should know as a farmer that if everyone around you could get free food, they're not going to buy it from you unless they're already rich. But rich people don't exactly need charity. So that's out of the question. And you can say that. So it's not just a hypothetical thing. There is an approach you can take to legitimately defend the position and maintain even the preloaded view of secular humanism that Craig has.
And they really can't offer any kind of refutation. There's nothing.
He doesn't even get what Andrew's saying, as we will see.
Yeah.
Tenet 3, ethical values are derived from human needs and interest is tested by experience. This is in the Humanist Manifesto as well. So my prescription based on that, we ought to have an emperor. He ought to be Darth Logicus, a one-world global government under Darth Logicus, supreme ruler of the federal peoples of Earth, will maximize the responsibility granted to them, thus recognizing their inherent dignity, and that is good. Tenet 4, life's fulfillment emerges from individual.
I like the way he keeps saying at the end, and that is good, as if he's himself God.
Yeah, like Genesis 1.
Yeah, and it is good. Like, he's announcing his own edicts as good.
Right? I think part of that is also to show, like, they use this manifesto as sort of a Bible, or at least they should. But as we will see, the guy doesn't know what he's doing, obviously.
Yeah.
Participation in the service of human ideals. My prescription based on this, we ought to occasionally beat random citizens to death with hammers, thereby reinforcing the value of the preciousness of human life, forcibly transmitting wonder and awe via the hammer, and that is good. Tenet 5, humans are social by nature and find meaning in relationships. My prescription based on this, we ought to eliminate all those who believe in violence, conflict resolution, who believe in violent conflict resolution, thereby making sure we eliminate violent conflict. We call this the paradox of violent conflict, and that is good. Last, working to benefit society maximizes individual happiness. So the descriptor here is right now millions suffer from inequality. My prescription is we should just eat nachos, and that is good. Now, I can refute all these prescriptions using Christian ethics. Craig's unable to refute any of them using his own standard. That standard is humanism based on this manifesto. Again, do you see the problem? Unless he just makes it up as he goes, which is what he's going to do. And that's why Christian
And
ethics are
that
superior,
turned out
thus
to be
destroying
true.
the entire ideology of sex.
Yeah, he really predicted things very well in this one.
Yep.
Sorry, I thought you were about to say something.
Humanism. If Craig moves away from this document, he's admitting defeat, something he knows a lot about. The advantages of Christian ethics is that it can provide a standard which is unchanging for what people ought do, not just descriptions of what they are doing. Craig's moral framework necessarily must change by its own admission, which is why society hasn't adopted it and won't adopt it. They don't know what it will be in another 20 years, 15 years, 200 years. They have no idea. There are now 4 versions, because I wrote one more. Should we have, 5,000, Craig? 10,000? I don't know. The Humanist manifesto can be interpreted any way you want. I just demonstrated that by interpreting it how I wanted to. And can't even be used to refute bad prescriptions given by bad people like Andrew Wilson based on the Humanist manifesto itself. So what are we even doing here? My society has produced obvious good results on society for millennia, including the fact that all societies which currently are considered the best are using my moral framework and not his. None, as in not one, as in 0 societies on earth are run off the Humanist manifesto. If Craig claims the manifesto itself isn't necessary to humanism or its doctrines, then again, what the hell is humanism? And how do we know what it is? How do we know what we're supposed to do with it? If we don't even have a document which describes it, then how can we understand how it works? If Craig claims we can use things outside the manifesto, he also, again, loses unless he can describe how that is humanism and how my prescriptions are not humanism, which is clearly defined with this manifesto I've been talking about. Also, I just want to finish with this. Craig doesn't know what a straw man is. I think first thing out of his mouth.
Yes. Very few people seem to.
Yeah. This is why almost everyone who participates in these types of things is a midwit.
Yeah.
I talked about this like a dozen times at least. Like, people don't know what an informal fallacy is. Like, it's a fallacy not that isn't in the form of the argument.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that if you commit a informal fallacy that the argument is wrong. It means that it is insufficient to lead to that conclusion. So when we say appeal to authority, it means that the argument is insufficient because the authority could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It means the authority could be lying, etc. But then you hear people say it's not a fallacy if the authority is an expert in the field. Like, what?
No.
Whom do you appeal to if not the expert in the field, right? I don't appeal to you. You're an engineer for linguistics. I don't. So it doesn't matter. Not only will that be an appeal to authority, it will be an appeal to the wrong authority. The thing about it is that no matter how expert someone is, they're not infallible. They can be wrong. They can be corrupt. They can be lying for the hell of it, right? That's why you say, whoever scientist said X, therefore it's true. Like, no, it doesn't mean it's not true, which is when you commit a formal fallacy, it means the argument is false completely.
Yeah.
But they struggle then with it because they think, oh, if it's a fallacy, it must mean the argument is wrong. Like, no, you're just too much of a midwit. You can't understand the actual point of this. Like, straw man isn't I critique your argument by mocking it. That's not what a straw man is. What Andrew is doing is called a reductio ad absurdum.
Yeah.
Right, reducing it to absurdity, following the very logic contained therein.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's his critique. He's not making, what he's saying isn't like, oh, this is what Craig believes.
Yeah, exactly. It's bizarre. It's I guess it's new. It's there are places where it can be complicated, but it's not that difficult. If you actually, I think what it comes down to is a certain level of laziness that
Yeah,
comes with that territory, where you just presume that you're going to understand everything, and then you wade into an area of complexity, assuming that you can just understand everything that comes in front of you, without actually having to work at it, and then you miss the point
yeah,
completely, right?
and there is no higher apex of midwittery than just appealing to something being obvious
Hmm.
and something so vague as common human experience.
Yeah. Well, they use it. She used it in the pro. Are we supposed to say TOS words? The pro adult
Prawn.
filming, yeah, prawn. That's it. The pro prawn debate, and he also uses it in this. So it's amazing how often it does come up.
Yep.
Um,
Mouth is going to be Andrew strawmanning me, okay? Which he also doesn't understand what ad hom. He doesn't understand what a lot of these terms mean. I'm giving a position based on prescriptions, so I can't actually be strawmanning Craig because these are my views. They're not your views. He'll say I'm strawmanning humanism, but I'm literally reading line by line, then giving prescriptions based on reason in regards to its tenets. So I don't really know what the problem is. Craig will not be able to refute a single prescriptive claim I've made by using his manifesto. All of my prescriptive claims are humanist claims. This is why humanism is the flat earth of ethical systems, and that's what Craig is. You're a moral flat earther.
Woo!
We'll kick it over to Craig for
2014
his
back
10-minute opening
again.
statement as well. Thanks very much, Craig. The floor is all yours.
Hello. I thank Andrew for his presentation and reasons why Christianity is better for society, but I didn't notice either of those things. So I guess I'll just go to my presentation and explain why secular humanism is better for society. Maybe Andrew forgot what the debate was about. I'm not sure.
oh damn!
Okay, so who am I? I'm Craig McNeil. I run the YouTube channel, FTFE, where I do debate the dumbest people on the planet, people that think the earth is flat and stuff like that. But today I'm here to debate why secular humanism is better for society than Christianity. Again, Andrew maybe missed the title of the debate there.
So he's arrogant about not getting it.
That's what's so funny about it, is that
Yeah.
he totally, and you realize as you go on that he has totally missed the point, and he doesn't even have a conception of the type of argument that Andrew's making, and yet he is the arrogant one.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Sorry, 1 second.
Kids with their phones
My
these
screen, bear
days.
with me.
Okay, while he thinks, question: how would people who use autonomous epistemology decide who
Autonomous.
get autonomous epistemology decide who gets to decide what is good?
I knew you'd know the word. You just misread it.
yeah, autonomous.
But that's a very Greek way of saying it. It means
Hmm.
a self-law, like a law that appeals to itself. So they basically, preference as moldy pie. Apple says moldy pie. I thought apple and then I thought pie.
It's always preference, really, isn't it? That's what it
Yeah,
always comes down to.
and this is what Jim Bob was on him at their debate, right? Because when I talked to Jim Bob in preparation for it, which turned out to be just a waste of his time. I even made him read a book. I don't know if he'll forgive me. You know, Americans and reading books. But
Reading is for text messages and billboards.
yes, and whatever it says on the jumbotron for sporting events. But
Yeah.
basically, because they decide by preference what is good, the entire debate can be called "Which do I prefer?" because from their perspective, that's what's happening. As far as Craig is concerned, what's being debated is which he prefers, secular humanism or Christianity.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's it.
and he's trying to tie it back to that. And the fact that he really thinks that Andrew missed the point, when what he's done is, like, Andrew has literally laid out whatever 5 or 6 different problems that Christianity can say, no, this is evil, and secular humanism cannot.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, I'm glad that Andrew, I don't, he must have not forgot what the debate's about. You're just like,
Yeah. He was probably waiting him to say, like, oh, it increases GDP. The HDI is higher under, Christianity, etc. Because this is a type of a consequentialist approach. I did talk to Andrew a bit about the prep for the debates. And I basically told him, what you're going to hear is Nordic countries.
mm,
And the problem with the Nordic countries is that they've had an abysmal birth rate for a while now. So their average age is also higher. And the thing about statistics regarding these things is that even if you go to any country and you compare like 30-year-olds to 50-year-olds, the 50-year-olds are going to have more money per capita because people tend to accumulate money over time, right? Especially for the higher paying jobs.
of course.
Because you're young, you've just gone through education. If you're a surgeon, you're probably, depending on which type exactly, you're going to start working at 40, something like that, right? Because you're going to need a lot of preparation done. So all the surgeons are going to be in the higher echelons of earning. And people don't get this. They don't get that in Norway you go to retirement, I think, when you're 70. Maybe it's still 69. So they are forced to do this because they don't reproduce. And it gives an artificial boom in GDP, as we talked, per capita, because of the increased average age. But it also strains all your services, which is something Craig won't get when Andrew mentions, and he already did. I mentioned
It's unbelievable. Yeah,
so he misses on every single point. But it's outstanding. It's almost impressive.
And the fact that he actually, like, we're staring down the barrel of this disastrous birth gap situation that we have in the world, across the entire world.
Ireland is actually good.
Yeah.
It's not very good, but when I went to school, there were 2 countries in Europe which had a positive birth rate. It was Albania and Ireland.
Yeah.
And I think both are now falling.
Oh yeah, I think we're like, what, 1.7 or 1.6 now. But like, it's somebody, you watch these documentaries about how bad it is, and the best analogy I've heard is that we're all, even Nigeria, we're all on the same train. Just, Canada's on the front.
Yeah.
On the front carriage, and Nigeria's on the back carriage, and then some of the people towards the back are like, "Oh, we're so based," but like everybody's on the same train.
Right. Not to mention that it can be a cascading effect. Right.
Yeah.
People think Nigeria, because there are, I think, only a couple of countries in Africa that are positive, like over 2.1. Which is not good, but they think it's sort of like people think if America collapses, like everyone's going to go, woo.
Yeah.
Everything is going to shit.
And Nigeria, or not Nigeria specifically, but African countries in general are highly dependent on the internet, and they don't run the internet themselves.
No,
so
they tend to rely, like a lot of them, on France. But even then, they rely on a lot of supplies. It's going to disrupt very, very fragile, peace that exists in a lot of these places, because they're not lifting the black fist of solidarity. They hate each other on tribal lines. This is also very common in the Middle East. It was pretty common in Europe too, until Christianity sorted most of it out.
Strangely.
Right, I don't know how that happened.
Actually, it's
But
another one of those. Sorry, before you go on, it's it's another one of those strange things you have to watch out for. He says it in this debate as well. Is how these people tend to blame religion as being the main cause of all wars ever. I don't know
yeah,
how that continues to be propagated when it like you just do a cursory search of there's a percentage. It's like 6.7% of
yeah,
wars
yeah,
were religious wars, and the rest weren't.
right. And even then, if you do you count the Crusades, or exactly which ones would you count? Like, I wouldn't call the First Crusade like a war of religion.
Hmm.
It is based on a solidarity of Western Christians with the Byzantine Christians,
Hmm.
right? But it wasn't like, oh, for the glory of God, we shall slaughter all the infidels. Like, no, it was the emperor asks the Pope for help, right? This was 1095, Pope Urban II, right? The schism didn't even fully materialize, right? Because it was like 40 years after the schism. These things take time to solidify, so no one thought, okay, this is over, right? It's not some clean split.
Hmm.
And then the Pope says, okay, if anyone wants to go to the East and help the guys out, you're welcome to. And they did. And they sort of defeated the invaders. And okay, what do we do now? Well, let's go to Antioch, right? So it wasn't. This is why people should tell him. He mentions the Crusades as if they were just some fanatics
Who
going
like
out
wipe?
killing for Christ.
Yeah. He talks about like they wiped out huge swathes of Europe. It's like they weren't just going around slaughtering Austrians and
Yeah,
like
there were problems, plenty of them, especially the fourth one,
Mm,
right, which ended up in the pillage of Constantinople.
of course.
And then a couple of places before that, like Zara, I think you call it in English. We call it Zadar. Like that's on in Croatia nowadays. Uh, but there were people who were being killed on the way. But that's not religious fervor. That's just being a bastard.
Yeah.
They weren't killing them for not being religious enough. They were just, hey, we want stuff. Give it to us. And we're like,
Yeah.
no. So all of that, it's just mythology. And not to mention, I talked to Jim Bob about this. Uh, they mention like witch burnings, which is almost exclusively a Protestant phenomenon. You can pull up a map of numbers of which they weren't burned for most, mostly they were drowned, but technicalities. Uh,
Mm.
like you look at countries, and I think Spain, the evil Spanish Inquisition and stuff. Spain, I think, is like 14, and then like Scotland is like 10,000 or something. I don't know, but it's obviously a Protestant thing. You see,
Yeah.
like, and for the Catholic and Orthodox, although technically the Orthodox Church doesn't have the authority to burn anyone, the secular government does that. But it was like abortion efficient, right? They considered you because these witches. Rachel writes about this. Right, a lot of it is inducing abortions. Right, so they saw you as an infanticidal maniac,
Hmm.
and then all sorts of things that these herb women were selling poisons and stuff, to make someone fall in
Yeah.
love with you, and the church was like, okay, whatever, if it's like some mint tea or whatever, but once you start getting poison into it, like they're going to get concerned. The man who wrote the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of the Witches, which the Protestants became obsessed with, some of them became obsessed with, like talking about like having sex with demons and whatnot. Uh, he was a priest, a Catholic priest, and he went to the College of Innsbruck, and they thought it was a joke or something. What are you talking about? So that's why the Catholic and the Orthodox Church were pretty chill on the matter, unless there was actual bloody harm done. Not, hey, that woman's a witch. You could get into a lot of trouble for accusing someone of witchcraft because it means you believe witchcraft works. But then you get to Protestants and they're all trad and based, they're not pagans like us, so they believe in witchcraft.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Are you able to pause and play this video?
No.
No. Okay.
All right. What is secular humanism? Secular humanism is a philosophical stance that values the capacity of individuals to act with autonomy and emphasizes critical thinking and evidence-based reasoning. It prioritizes human welfare over objective knowledge over religious dogma or superstition. Secular humanism centers on upholding reason, ethics, and justice as foundations for a humane society. It advocates for human rights, social equality, and the continuous search for truth through scientific and rational inquiry. Secular humanism.
So this is a theistic or atheistic channel. Both of us are Christians. Posh is an Orthodox Christian. I would consider myself an Orthodox Christian, but I think the technicality would be that I am not. I'm a seeker or a searcher. I'm not officially.
You haven't been baptized and haven't entered catechesis yet, but you are an inquirer.
An inquirer. So, yeah, but I don't know if we would call it necessarily an atheistic channel, or it's kind of hard to completely veer away from these topics, but
is all about cutting down the hurt and boosting.
Maybe we should discuss that.
The happy. It's a no-brainer. Less suffering, more thriving. This principle shows up in the nitty-gritty stuff like public health policies and safety rules.
Nitty-gritty? Oh, it's nitty-gritty stuff.
Forget the days of wiping out chunks of Europe in the Crusades. Now we're into making life better, not starting wars over divine favor. It's not about making choices that help. It's about making choices that help everyone, proving that we can do a lot of good without any kind of holy wars. Secular humanism sticks to reason and real-world proof to keep its ethics sharp. We're not about bending the rules to fit old-timey text or mystical claims from a sky daddy as the world changes. Thanks to tech upgrades and new social twists, we update our moral code too. It's about evolving with the times, not getting stuck in scriptural mud. Secular humanism lays the groundwork for a society where common sense and fairness call the shots. It's all about using solid evidence and treating everyone equally to build a place where everyone gets to do what they need to thrive. This way, we all have a shot at living our best lives. Secular humanism taps into what we all feel deep down, things like empathy and compassion that cross all borders, instead of relying on the whims of deities with their own dodgy...
Things we all feel on the inside, because deeply on the inside, we all just want to hug people, right? Violent urges and stuff. That's not deep inside. That you get that from the Bible, right? If left to our own devices, we just be again hugging people. That's maybe why the birth rates are so low, because you don't even get the other urges. You just hug people. And that doesn't materialize in reproduction. Absolute bloody nonsense. And someone like my good friend Casimir, like an anarcho-capitalist, would have a field day with this fellow, because he's basically equating secular humanism with social democracy.
Yeah.
Social democracy can be very, very right-wing. Right, it can be very oppressive to minorities of a certain variety. It doesn't do anything. So why can't libertarians make the same thing? He talks about consent a lot. Yeah, ask a libertarian about taxes. See how you deal with it. Oh, common experience we all had.
Yeah. It's just the height of naivety. Like it's the kind of, I just don't understand how somebody his age, somebody who engages so regularly with trying to debate with people, yeah, how they can get into this level of it's like teenager, or it's really like amazing to think that like you can literally make an argument on the basis of we all know we all know, and really we all want the best, and we all want kumbaya, and everything's going to be fine if we all just agree to be good.
Yeah, I talk about this. They start with a baseline of psychological positivism, which is very evident in people like Rousseau or in Marx and later on. Like basically, you're a good person, but somehow you've been corrupted. And for secular humanists, they are like Marx. They believe it's basically some superstition has caused you to not be a good person, right? It's not in human nature. Now, they also don't have an idea of what human nature is because they will have a very selective approach to the very thing. So again, it's like all of these small half steps they accumulate and pretend they've run a marathon. Meanwhile, they're all discombobulated and lead to nowhere.
And totally unaware of it.
Yep.
At least I know that I'm discombobulated.
Moral compasses. It builds ethics on the real shared experiences of all humans and the things we go through. This keeps things fair and focused on what actually improves our lives, helping guide smart, kind decisions no matter where in the world you are. It's about playing by the rules that make sense for everyone, not just the heavenly few. Secular humanism relies on scientific evidence and rational debate, driving major advancements in civil rights, healthcare, and education. It champions facts over fiction, leading to real-world solutions that improve lives. Christianity often lets ancient texts block modern scientific progress, from stifling stem cell research to opposing gender equality. It's held us back more often than not, clinging to outdated beliefs that don't match today's realities. Secular humanism adapts to new moral challenges and
Even the use of language, sorry, I just had to point it out, don't match today's reality.
Yeah.
Like the word reality, like it's this total lack of kind of an objective truth, even in his speech patterns. You know,
Yep.
it's crazy. It's just like outdated. Today's realities, everything's different now. Maybe it made sense in the past, but not now.
This is called in our circles. We now know.
Yeah,
Because that's what all the new atheists start with. We now know X, Y, and Z. Well, congratulations, by the way, to Richard Dawkins for stepping down from a board of some atheist rubbish stuff organization because he's transphobic. So, and I would be the one chasing him with a pitchfork. Probably not a pitchfork. He doesn't own such a thing. That's for people who do stuff. But with I don't know, giant dildo probably. But because he's transphobic, and we now know in today's reality, scientific and empathetic reality, we perform mastectomies on 15-year-old girls.
of course, that's the empathetic reality. I don't know why you're saying it as if that's not true. I'm confused.
Yeah,
societal shift,
you might
always looking to
imputed,
refine and improve ethical
mockery
standards
on
based
me
on human
on
needs
my
and new
statement.
information. Whereas Christianity is stuck in the past, often finding itself on the wrong side of history with rigid doctrines that clash with modern values
Right
of
side of
fairness and
history,
justice.
yeah.
Whether it's LGBTQ rights or women's rights, the inflexibility leads to exclusion and harm. Secular humanism embraces everyone, no matter their religion, gender, sexuality, or race. It's built on the idea that ethics and rights are universal, everyone's included, and everybody matters. Christianity too often divides and discriminates under the guise of divine law, leading to social fragmentation, whether it's condemning non-believers or marginalizing communities. It's more about in-groups and out-groups than universal brotherhood. Now, I'm going to debunk some of Andrew's more outlandish claims about secular humanism, starting with his peculiar fixation on necrophilia. I don't know why he brings that up so often.
This is a
Let's
classic
set the record
one as
straight.
well.
Secular humanism puts a premium on
I love Andrew's face, just going, I don't know what you're talking about.
consent and continued consent, because there are two parts to consent. Crucial elements that are obviously absent when one party is deceased. Unlike some ancient doctrines that might overlook such nuances.
Just to show, and Jim Bob and Andrew have been going on this with the example of Granny. We shan't delve too deeply into it. But basically, he says no consent is given if a party is deceased. There is no party then.
Mm-hmm.
It might as well be a rock.
Yeah, especially under his worldview.
Yeah,
Under a
I
Christian
talk about
worldview.
how do you have consent if you don't have free will? God damn it!
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, and in Christianity, these ancient moldy texts that say don't do it, you git.
It's amazing how many of their positions make far more sense under a Christian worldview than under their own. Under their own, they're literally impossible.
Yeah, because humanism started off like literally saying it's a religion without a god, right? So it's sort of like with Hume, we don't progress, we regress, right? Hume was more we more than advanced in terms of philosophy as Christians, right? We have something to build on. Hume basically said induction is unreliable, and therefore, you can't say the sun rises in the east every day. He says you can't because it's inductive reasoning. The problem of epistemology and stuff like that was all people were aware of that, and Hume was Scottish, and if he could get it, anyone can.
Yeah.
So they just said, "Oh yeah, that's boring. Let's just presume epistemology and the reliability of the senses and interpretation of data, etc."
Yeah.
Our ethical framework ensures respect for both the living and the dead, advocating for laws that uphold dignity for all. Moving on to intriguing cultural practices that Andrew likes to also bring up. Andrew tends to highlight the particular tribe.
I don't suppose he's talking about the cum warriors, is he?
The furries would, what do they call it, crackling? Yeah, that's dignity right there.
With rituals that are less than conventional. Secular humanism doesn't give a free pass to every tradition out there. We critically assess their impact based on real harm, consent, and continued consent. We respect
Do you know what he's
cultural
talking about?
diversity, but we stand.
Yeah, he's talking about the Papua New Guinea. That's what the cum warriors, right? That's what they're. That's what they're. Called,
that's what you were talking about. I thought
Yeah.
you just meant degenerates. But yeah, so just to be clear for people, Andrew doesn't bring it up here, but he does bring it up elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. For anybody who's wondering, there's a tribe in Papua New Guinea. I think they used to. I don't know if they still do, but at any rate, it was a tribal ritual where all the men, the warriors, would run around, orally graping the young boys in the morning, and the young boys would voraciously seek it out. Right?
I think they would stand in a line. I don't think there was chasing involved.
Well, yes, sorry. Yeah, no, the boys wanted it. The young boys, which is key to the argument.
That bar mitzvah.
Yeah, it was key. It was key to the point that this was considered an honor for the young boys.
Yeah,
and so you can't claim there was no consent. Now you could under some kind of their
yeah, you could say they're too young is a sort of like statutory limit, but who are you to impose on these beautiful people and
their beautiful culture? Whereas Christianity would have a very quick and swift answer for that situation.
Yeah, it involves a stick, a large vertical stick, and a bunch of smaller sticks at the bottom, and a torch.
Yeah.
Also, you know that the Irish, pagan Irish, had the nipple suckling thing.
Yes, I do know about this. Yeah.
Saint Patrick wrote about it in his Confessions. And there's something I have to send you very funny about that.
I've seen a good short about it. I'll try and find it while we're watching. But
practices that harm or exploit, especially under the guise of tradition. We believe in evolving traditions that promote human rights and dignity, not those that trap people in harmful cycles. And about that favourite narrative of Andrew's that secular humanism supposedly opens the door to moral relativism. Here's the truth. Our moral framework is solidly anchored in the observable impacts of actions on real people, promoting behaviours that enhance well-being and reduce suffering. We rely on reason and evidence to guide us, not fleeting feelings or ancient edicts.
Okay, I just looked up Irish nipple sucking in Google and found out
Why would you do
and I found out the hard way that I should have had my safe search on. It tells me at the top, you have no safe search. It is just I've just got a Google page full of porn.
Yeah,
just
I never even presumed you would go that route.
Finding meaning in human connections and logical thinking, striving for a society that values real outcomes over theoretical purity. Andrew, while you might be content to debate the ethics of bygone eras, we secular humanists are busy applying rational, thoughtful decisions to improve your lives today. So while some are still praising the finer points of medieval texts, we're ensuring that everyone right here and right now gets a fair shot at a dignified life, underpinned by principles of consent and continued
By
consent.
double mastectomy.
No divine intervention needed, just a commitment to common sense and humanity. Now, the ethical failings of Christianity through both historical and modern lenses is an interesting thing. Historically, Christianity has found itself on the wrong side of morality. Crusades, inquisitions, where violence was not only justified, but glorified as a divine mandate.
He's just so wrong about everything. That
I know.
I want to just skip past him because it's kind of boring. But I feel like
he doesn't make any point.
yeah, I don't think he makes any points. I think we should just skip on.
To
because
the exchange.
Yeah, it's absolute nonsense. All right, so I'm gonna just forward this on. Let him get past this. Let's see.
Yeah, so if you don't mind if I ask a quick question, do you have a copy of Humanism 3?
No.
You know, you do follow Humanism 3?
It's a framework, yes.
Okay, it is your framework.
Yeah.
Can you, using the document of Humanism 3, debunk a single prescriptive statement that I make?
Well, your prescriptive statements were just something you made up based on your personal interpretations of it. And,
So secular Humanism 3.
Yeah, I was in the middle of talking, Andrew.
So it's Humanism
if you
3.
want to calm down when I'm talking, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah.
There it is.
Andrew's like the Protestant of secular humanism here.
Yeah, he's Luther.
Yeah, this guy's like adhering to tradition or something. I think. Like he's like, get out of here, Andrew.
What you did was you said, I think this is what the manifesto says, so therefore I'm going to interpret it this way and bring my own prescriptions. Well, Andrew, your prescriptions are your prescriptions, and that is literally a straw man because it is your own interpretation of secular humanism, which doesn't align with what everyone else thinks secular humanism is. You claim I don't know what
The Secular Humanist Council has decided.
Yeah, it's just the way
They have an
have to
ecclesiarchy,
argue against your personal prescriptions. We can just
How
talk
he
about
misses
what
every
humanism
point.
is better for society. None of the things that you mentioned are about society. They're just what you don't like about secular humanism. What I'm just going to ask you is very simple.
Humanism.
Yeah, what I'm going to ask you, Andrew, is very
How
simple.
long are you going to filibuster, dude?
Well, I
just
was
let you
literally
talk.
about to ask a question. If you can calm down and let me finish my sentence, then you can respond.
Craig,
Right, what I am going to
calm-
ask
Craig,
you
chill
is...
out, Craig. Stop spurging, Craig.
What I'm going to
Stop
ask you,
spurging,
Andrew...
Craig.
I'm like 3
Stop
words away from the end.
spurging, Craig. Stop spurging. Calm
Are you
down.
okay?
Calm
Do you
down.
need a
We'll
moment?
get to the question. Go ahead, Craig.
Do
Ask
you need
the
a moment,
question.
Andrew? It's
Calm
okay.
down, Craig.
If you
Chill
need a
out.
moment to take a breath, that's
Go ahead,
absolutely
Craig.
fine. Yeah.
Craig,
Oh,
this is a
Craig.
great time to ask the question.
What I'm going to ask you, Andrew, is
Spurging,
because
Craig.
you failed to do that in your opening, could you explain to us why Christianity is better for society?
Yeah.
Instead of just
Yeah,
attacking
here.
your own views
Yeah.
of
So
society.
let's make this really simple,
Yeah.
right? So Craig says here, he says, well, that's your interpretation of the Humanist Manifesto. You see the problem?
Yeah,
Everybody's
that
going
wasn't
to have
the
an
question.
interpretation of the Humanist Manifesto. Thus, if everybody has an interpretation of the Humanist Manifesto, including me, we can make prescriptions based on it, Craig. So now I'm making prescriptions based on the Humanist Manifesto for what? Society. Okay, you are asking about Christianity. I told you that Christian ethics are better for society because I can refute the prescriptions made in the Humanist Manifesto that I just made in the Humanist Manifesto. You, Craig, cannot refute a single prescription I made off a single tenet in the Humanist Manifesto using your own manifesto. Do you understand that?
Yes, Andrew, I completely understand
So
that.
doesn't that...
No, you don't.
Not even remotely.
And he's gonna make it clearer and clearer. Like he says, this is what I was saying at the start. It's not as easy as you think it is to identify somebody who is a stupid person, especially in the modern day when everybody has a relatively decent vocabulary.
Yeah.
So and they say things like, "Yes, of course I understand," and you think, okay, well, if he understands that, well, at least he's on the ball. But he doesn't understand. Like, he has no idea.
Yep.
And having a society entailment,
So,
a societal entailment, Craig.
Would you like me to answer the question, or are you just going to talk when I
I
talk?
can't wait. Go ahead.
Do you need a minute to calm down? It's fine. We can take 2 minutes, and you
He's in no position to be mocking.
can.
Yep.
Fine.
Yeah, get to the answer, please.
Yeah, so again, what you haven't done is explain why Christianity is better. You just said, I think it's better because I don't like secular humanism. That's not explaining why Christianity, what ethics, what morals about Christianity make it better for society. What you've done
more
is
beer than
simply
I
attack
have.
secular humanism. You haven't given me a single reason why Christianity specifically is better. What you said is Christianity is better because I don't like these things about secular humanism, and I want you to tell me why these things about
Now, he promised us that he understood. And
Yeah.
he's making it very clear right now that he lied.
Yep.
So
What we call
I don't know.
a performative contradiction.
Yeah, I don't know what to think anymore, because he promised.
And look, he's
humanism
got
is bad.
the
But Andrew,
Skull and
you aren't
Bones shirt.
Oh, interesting.
And that nose, it's all coming together.
Interesting. I'm looking around for, can we find any numbers? Oh, right now we're almost 33 minutes into this live stream, so
here to attack secular humanism. You're here to defend Christianity. So you failed to do it in
Fractal.
your intro. So can you just give me a single reason specifically, without attacking secular humanism? Because that's what flat earthers do. You're acting like a flat earther. So flat earthers attack the globe instead of saying why flat earth is better. So instead of
the term chairs is midwit. That's
Yep.
he's the king of the midwits.
attacking secular humanism,
No, that's destined.
could you give me a reason why?
No, that's
Christianity
actually Buzzwrecker, I
is
think,
the thing
technically,
that is
isn't it?
better for society? What more?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
when I make prescriptions based on a humanist manifesto, I can debunk those prescriptions using Christian ethics. You can't debunk those prescriptions using the Humanist Manifesto.
Well, go on then, debunk
That's
them.
why it's better. Okay, here, I'll show you. Let's give you an example. If we can go through these, we can get through
Well,
it.
that'd be wonderful, yeah, because what I would like to hear is reasons why Christianity is better, not
Yeah,
reasons
I
why
do.
you dislike
He
secular
wants
humanism.
to.
This isn't about
Damn it.
feelings,
Let's
this is about reasons.
Let's do this, perhaps, so that we're not talking past each other. Are you willing to steel man my argument here?
Here we go.
Can you steel man it?
Well, your argument would be based on your particular version of Christianity, which is which again?
Can you steel man my argument?
Just pausing it at 33 minutes and 33 seconds into the stream, into the video.
Now you're going to have a power outage. I can't see it, so yeah, I'm safe.
But no, like, that's just so bad, isn't it? Like that was just a moment of panic. So your argument's based on, and then it's like Reddit tier, your version of Christianity.
Yeah. By the way, while saying that Andrew's argument is nonsensical because that's his version of the interpretation of the manifesto.
Yeah.
Great job. Great job.
It's just unbelievable. It's really quite impressive. Quite
Yes,
impressive.
I am impressed by the arrogance of it.
Yeah. Like, people give out about, like, the girls that Andrew be dealing with on the whatever podcast. Some of them seem half retarded. This guy puts them all to shame.
Yeah,
Like, totally.
Not to mention, he assumably has been doing this for years. Not these topics.
Yeah.
But he's been debating flat earthers for years, and this is the level of comprehension he can get when things get a bit more abstract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's old. He's older than me. He has a fully developed brain, unlike a lot of the girls on the whatever podcast. Like, this is a totally. He should be able to handle this level of abstraction.
Yeah, like the only excuse for this lack of understanding abstracts is having autism. Because you have autists who absolutely lack any capacity to abstract.
Yeah,
and it's very strange to see.
Yeah.
I've seen like, they can't see. You draw like a stick figure, they can't see how that's a human being.
I've seen some short about it where he says, people say that because I'm autistic, I'm a literal thinker. And then I can't remember how he gets it wrong, but he's like, but if I was a literal thinker, then whatever he goes off on some.
Which argument?
The one I just made, Craig.
Your argument is you don't like secular humanism. These are the things I don't like about secular humanism. So I'm going to say secular humanism can do these things, and that means that secular humanism is bad. That's what you said, Andrew. You have given me a list of things that you think you can prescribe based on the Humanist manifesto, right? That's what you've done, correct?
Uh-huh.
Right? So therefore, you are saying, well, these are the prescriptions that I think I can give based on secular humanism.
Why do I think Christianity is better? What's my argument? Christianity.
You haven't said yet. You've said
said
what you've said, Andrew, is that Christianity can debunk these things, but you haven't explained how it can debunk them.
Okay, let's
give
get
me specifics
here.
related to Christianity.
Let's
that
do
can
it.
Debunk the things about secular
Let's
humanism.
do it.
You know that somebody spends too long in these circles when he's not even saying can oppose these positions, refute these positions. He's not can give a robust argument against these positions. He's saying he wants them debunked.
Yeah.
They can't be debunked. They're just like propositions that Andrew's putting forward.
Right. But it's a very common turn of phrase, debunk
Yeah.
X and Y, and it sounds like a gotcha, like a proper slam dunk.
Yeah, you've been debunked.
Because
Prescription.
so far you've given me no reasons
Greg,
why Christianity is better.
Greg, I'll do it. The prescription for one. Do you agree that the first tenet for secular humanism is knowledge of the world is derived by observation, experimentation, and rational analysis?
That's what I said if we go back to the slide, which you didn't present any. But
Why do I need to present a slide?
Well, it's because we've got a big thing up there to present slides, and I thought it'd be nice to.
I have a slideshow. So anyway,
Yeah, because one of us prepares for the arguments. The other one,
I didn't prepare for the arguments because
Well,
I didn't have a slideshow.
Yeah, Andrew, you've done a million debates like this. This is my second. I thought I'd do some research and prepare, and give some.
And not even know.
Can we get back
Eastern
to this?
Orthodox
Yeah.
what is Andrew's affiliation?
Yeah.
That's a great argument. Like he had to search out some arcane secret knowledge, like which class was Andrew in the third year of high school. No.
Yeah, he managed to find out that Andrew talks about the Papua New Guineans, and he managed to figure out. He must have literally watched, because actually both of those things came up in the debate Andrew had 2 days previously. So I'm guessing he literally watched Andrew's most recent debate and noted.
Oh
those
yeah,
two
that's
things.
a good point. I would have said about the Papua New Guinea thing. So another white man who thinks he can tell black people and they should. I think he'd have flipped a switch, switched a flip. That's what I was going to say. I don't think Andrew had a lot of capacity to think left from trying not to take out a weapon.
Do you agree, yes or no? Tenet 1, knowledge.
I did say yes. Maybe you have problems hearing, but carry on.
Greg, you need to calm down, bro.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm waiting for your.
Calm down.
What I'm doing, Andrew, is I'm waiting for your argument, but you're yet
I
to give
just
one.
want to make sure that we're clear.
Yeah, we are clear. But
Okay,
you haven't
good.
yet
Let's
given
move
an argument
forward.
for your position.
Okay, so my prescription to that, Craig, is the birth rate is low, therefore all women must be forcibly bred, and experiments must be conducted on them to maximize fertility and thereby maximize human flourishing because science, and that is good. Now, Craig, that's what I read from Tenet 1, right? Can you use any of the tenets in the Humanist Manifesto 3 to debunk that prescription or tell me why that prescription's bad?
So still no reasons why Christianity is better. That's what I'm asking here. What you're saying is explain why this is good.
Because
I've yet
under,
to hear
because
why
under
Christianity.
okay, let me
You
explain.
said you can debunk that using
Bro,
Christianity.
Then I'll explain. Yes. So under Christian ethics, forcibly locking up women and doing horrible things to them would be a violation of God's law. It would be a violation of Jesus Christ's law to man. So because of that, Christians would say, no, you can't lock women up and forcibly breed and experiment on them. You're not allowed to do that, Craig. Now, Craig, I just gave you a demonstration of how Christianity would debunk this. Now, Craig, can you use the Humanist Manifesto to do it? Great. Let's do it. Do it.
Well, so your prescription is a straw man of secular humanism. It's all right. I can explain why. right? Because secular humanism doesn't say, you've gone that there's a low birth rate, therefore we have to do this. Secular humanism doesn't say there's a low birth rate. Read the tenet again for me.
It says knowledge in the world is derived by observation, experiment, and rational analysis.
And then what was your prescription?
My prescription, based on my interpretation of this, is that the birth rate is low, therefore all women must be forcibly bred. Experiments must be conducted on them to maximize fertility and therefore maximize human flourishing, because science, and that is good.
So you're saying that secular humanism makes a low birth rate?
No, I'm saying that the interpretation here prescriptively on what I'm reading is that this prescription would not in any way counter that tenet.
I didn't hear that bit the first time.
I did, and at this point, I was in such a state of despondency. I just wasn't shocked by anything.
I have to go hear that again. Hold on.
If he literally said pee pee poo poo, I would just like, okay, yeah, okay.
It's way worse than that Jordan Peterson. So what you're saying is like it's so totally off the wall.
Secular humanism doesn't say, you've gone that there's a low birth rate, therefore we have to do this. Secular humanism doesn't say there's a low birth rate. Read the tenet again for me.
Okay. Everyone concentrate.
It says knowledge in the world is derived by observation, experiment, and rational analysis.
And then what was your prescription?
My prescription, based on my interpretation of this, is that the birth rate is low, therefore all women must be forcibly bred. Experiments must be conducted on them to maximize fertility and therefore maximize human flourishing, because science, and that is good.
So you're saying that secular humanism makes a low birth rate?
No, I'm saying that the interpretation here prescriptively
How?
what I'm reading
I don't
is
know.
that this prescription would not...
I actually thought I'd get it the second time. I thought I'd understand what wording Andrew
No.
had used.
Listen, what he's doing is like we all make the argument that atheists don't reproduce. Like, they just don't. The more atheist a society, the less they reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what Andrew's doing here.
Yeah.
So he's like grasping for ancillary sources of interpretation.
I think that's the most charitable and I suppose likely reason why that could have happened. But
I don't know how you make that jump. Like he just says the birth rate is low.
Yeah, and he says, so you're saying, and it's like, what? It's like he's totally unprepared for this type of conversation. Like maybe he's never heard this type of conversation before.
Right. Because it's obvious, because of collective human experience, it's obvious what's good and what's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Because I've been like I told you before that I've been in arguments with an atheist guy, and I was an atheist at the time as well. But he was like, a good friend of mine who was far better informed philosophically than I was, and I had no idea at the time. Like I was totally lost, and I thought I was kind of in the conversation. It's only looking back years later I realized that I was missing so much of the argument. I was still right, I think. In hindsight, I was right. He was wrong, but I wasn't playing the same game at all. Like he was just like he was talking about like he was saying I have no grounding. He was right that I have no grounding for my epistemology. He was saying everything you're saying, you need to be a Christian in order to ground. And I was like, but I'm not a Christian, so obviously you're wrong.
Yeah, and that's actually what they say. So
Yeah.
Right, it's common because you just sort of assume things.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest problem when I was an atheist, and granted I was like 14, like between 12 and about 15, I was an atheist. But to me, that was the biggest problem, and I talked about, I think even here on this channel, like my crisis with solipsism when I was 10. And
As we all have.
Yeah. But I mentioned like being afraid to go to the bathroom, because thinking, what if I think I'm going to the bathroom, but in reality, whatever that would constitute,
Oh wow, okay.
I'm actually like peeing my pants during some fancy dinner and ruining my parents' reputation.
You were ruining your mind. You were
because they didn't know how to answer it. Right? So that epistemological struggle persisted when I was an atheist. And ultimately I realized, no, you need the transcendent. If you have to, if you can have, you have to have the transcendent to have a will, to have knowledge. Otherwise, it's just chemistry, right? Or physics, whatever you want to reduce thoughts to, and that's just all interaction. And if that's the case, you never know you're correct. Like, obviously, people have figured this out long before I did, but this was my go at it, right? And that's sort of what broke my atheism, because I realized, okay, there's just no answering this. I'm grasping at straws, trying to preserve a materialistic system. I didn't call it a materialistic system exactly, because, but like I just thought of matter in that sense, like stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wasn't engaging at all on the same level that you're talking about. For me, it was, I had gone through my life totally.
But you were raised an atheist, right?
I was raised an atheist, so I never had to consider these ideas, and it wasn't that I was totally depthless, but just I'd never been presented with anything particularly deep to think about.
Right.
And then when my friend came to me, and he's an atheist, and he was an atheist at the time, and he is an atheist still, and started sort of trying to win me over to postmodernism and so on, I just totally rejected it out of hand. And he was like, "You've got no grounding to reject my position. My position is the rational position if you claim to be an atheist." So he was arguing the same way that you guys argue. So, but he was saying you can't ground the way you think the world is if you're an atheist.
And
And
he
I'm like,
was an
well,
atheist as well, right?
and he was an atheist as well.
Right. But
So he was saying,
so he was struggling with this notion while you were just assuming it.
I was just assuming, and it drove him wild, I think, at the time, because he couldn't get it across to me because I wasn't really listening, and most of the time we were arguing while drunk. But
Oh yeah, that helps.
yeah. So, but now, eventually, I came around to Christianity, and then was learning more and more and more, and then now, in hindsight, looking back, I'm seeing these arguments he was making and realizing he was just a few years ahead of me in terms of the logic of the situation. But yeah.
Not in any way counter that tenet.
Well, the fact that there's low birth rates isn't a bad thing. It's not low birth rates, it's lower birth rates.
Is locking women up and breeding them a bad
absolutely
thing?
not. We wouldn't.
That's not a bad thing? Or it is a bad thing?
When I'm in the middle of a sentence explaining something, that's when you be quiet and listen. Maybe I know you're used to.
For all the Americans
I know,
who
I'm
watch
way- I'm
this,
way out of
like,
line, Craig, I
you
know.
know how they think English people are like extraordinarily polite.
Yeah,
I beg your pardon, completely, unforgivable on my end to have caused you any sort of trouble. No, all the rest of Europe they see English as this guy, except probably much fatter and a football hooligan. Those are the only two additional modifiers. But they're seen as extremely rude.
If you let me finish my thoughts, it
okay.
would be helpful, if I can finish what I'm saying.
Okay, go ahead.
So secular humanism is about harm, and locking people up and doing experiments on them is causing harm, and they wouldn't do that. A lower birth rate doesn't necessarily mean that things are bad. It just means that there is less people than having lots of people. Now, an extremely large birth rate has many problems. So we can look at what large birth rates cause: poverty, broken families, people being homeless, lots of things like that. So there's no reason secular humanism would, if there is a low birth rate, go and then lock people
For
up
this, what he's saying here, there's no excuse.
yeah.
Like, this isn't even religious, moralizing or whatever. Like, this level of stupidity is inexcusable.
Yeah.
It's basic statistics. Basic statistics, especially concerning demographic changes.
Yeah.
Guess what? You're inverting the pyramid of demographic age groups. That's going to collapse an entire system, the entire economy. Everyone's going to have a hell.
Yeah. People don't understand. I think that's something I wanted to even talk about. People don't understand quite how serious that situation is.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of catastrophe it leads to, because what people imagine is that when birth rates collapse, the population reduces,
Yeah,
which it does, but then the cities don't reduce in size. They're the same, right? They're the same size.
right.
And
So there they would probably say, "Oh, well, after the plague, people flourished." Yeah, because you've had all the infrastructure left, and that infrastructure wasn't exactly sophisticated,
Mhm,
requiring like people with multiple areas of expertise to maintain. So that's having houses and basic roads left. Sure, that helps. But the plague also mostly killed old people, people who were already frail and stuff
mhm.
like that. And it killed perfectly healthy people. Not, I'm not saying that, but it did basically the opposite of what's currently the case. So when things collapse, you're going to be left with infrastructure. There's no financial infrastructure. Everything is digitalized. You have
Yeah.
no economy. You have no services. You have nothing.
It's already a balancing act. The Portuguese guy,
Oh yeah,
there was a Portuguese guy who was living in my house for 7 months or so, Pedro, and he was working for the electric board over here. And his job all day was trying to manage crises that were going on in like Electric Ireland constantly. It'd be like, okay, well this building over here is like not this station over here is having a fault, so we're going to divert power this way. And like he was on a team of like
yeah.
people who were
They
just trying
see
to.
they see it as a state, like some sort of stasis. The grid is working and the grid is not working when the power's out. Like
Yeah.
not as if like it's one of those insanely complex things imaginable.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and it'll just be gone. And then even on a more basic level, they use Detroit actually in America as an example of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so when people moved out of Detroit, right, it was a flourishing city. There was suburbs and there was houses going out and out and out. What didn't happen was that there was just less people. What happened was you had one house on the street had people in it, and maybe the next two houses had nobody, and then the next house had people, and so on. It's scattered. So what happens to the houses in between the houses with people is they get infested with drug
Rodent.
addicts or rats or gangs, or they become dilapidated, and then the area becomes crime ridden, and that's what will become of all cities.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know how the left says poverty causes crime.
Yeah.
It's far more the case that crime causes poverty
Hmm.
because no one invests in a crime-ridden area.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have no jobs. Now, it is also true that poverty contributes to criminal proclivities for all sorts of reasons, right? Some very, detailed, and we shouldn't get into now. But you then get that problem that you have an increase in criminality, which prevents, investments, which places get turned into no-go zones. So the decent people are trapped there
Yeah.
and can't do anything about it. And then you've got probably people like our friend Craig here. Uh, then they are against policing the areas, which is the only way to break out of the cycle. Is hard policing. Like, we've seen this in El Salvador in the last couple of
Amazing. Yeah.
years. So it is the clearest possible proof. Do you know what you do with criminals? You
Yeah.
break them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't allow this to fester.
Yeah.
But I
And you can't
suppose
but
I suppose.
you can't stop it if the birth rate collapses and you haven't got
Oh
enough
yeah,
young men between the ages of 20 and 40 to be the muscle.
yeah. Now, also what you get with actually peak offending years are somewhere between 14 and 17, which people don't tend to think about, right? You usually think someone in their 20s or something.
Hmm.
These are peak offending years, which means if you have a low birth rate, you will artificially decrease the amount of crime, because it tends to be young people who do crime, especially young men, of course,
Hmm.
which is part of why you have a very low crime rate in places like South Korea and Japan. There are other things, obviously. I'm not saying that's
The
uh,
only thing.
Right, far from it. But again, they see things that are very sophisticated and require active maintenance on a very high level. They see them as states.
Yeah.
Like we talked about the electric grid, right? So they see, look at the per capita income in Norway. It's higher than the per capita income in the US. I think, I don't know, that this was years ago, the last time I checked, could still be the case. And I already said, like, if you've got an aging population, that's going to artificially bring up the statistics for per capita income. But then they would conclude, and what Craig is saying, and I can also just say, do you know what also they have in common? They're all monarchies.
Yeah.
Right? It's not the Republic of Sweden that Chairs lives in. It's the Kingdom of Sweden, Kingdom of Norway, Kingdom of Finland and Denmark and Netherlands and the UK, although that
we could correlate maybe some kind of propensity for blue eyes or something as well.
yes,
Or blonde hair, maybe. Yeah.
The non-existence of the soul in case of the Nordics.
Yes. Countries where people don't have souls. Let's get go on.
No.
I was going to say, well, let's get back to Craig and find out what he has to say next. So we've only pointed out a few things. There's like this massive stack of disastrous problems. Each one society destroying by itself, that are all just waiting to crash down.
I wish Andrew laid into him on that here, because he would have made such a fool of him.
An experiment on them, because that is not necessarily a bad thing, and having a slightly lower birth rate can actually help humans flourish.
Lower.
As a secular humanists, we're all about human flourishing, and having a slightly lower birth rate will actually help, because it allows better standards of living, less poverty, less problems.
He's talking like it's like you either have 12 children or one. And if everyone has 12 children, what do we do? The infrastructure can't cope. And then, he's talking about, we went from 12 to 10. Or from 12 to 5. No, we went to below replacement.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Societal problems from having too many people around. So you have come up with your prescription, which is a prescription I don't agree with. So I don't have to accept your prescription.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so
if I don't have to accept your prescription, I don't even have to debunk it. That is your prescription.
Yeah.
And it's not what any secular humanism would say. In fact, that prescription is a logical impossibility based in secular humanism, because it includes doing harm. And secular humanists would not do something that includes harm. So Andrew, whether you realize it or not, and whether your audience realizes it or not, that prescription that you have come from, your interpretation, is a straw man of secular humanism.
I feel like he attacked us directly, Hush.
Your prescription is, because your prescription is based on
who
the interpretation that no secular humanism would come to the conclusion of. It is a logical impossibility that secular humanists would lock people up and do experiments on them. So to think that
Okay, so he just continues to miss the point here. This goes on. I have it in my notes that we get on to about this just continues like this until about 47 minutes in, when things start to move in a slightly more interesting direction. But it's shocking. He gets nothing. He just literally understands nothing.
We can plug the Ogrin speech patterns on him.
Yeah.
That's what a bonehead.
Let me just make sure now. Where was it? It was from about there till about 47th minute. Apparently, we get into a more interesting point. Get back to here. So
and experiment on them, because that causes harm.
So as you can see, he did just keep the conversation did just keep repeating for a while.
Oh yeah.
Based on whatever their collective experiences are.
It's a logical impossibility.
Stop.
You asked me the question.
Can I finish asking it?
Okay.
So anyway, what's actually to stop the collective from coming up with, well, for one thing, they can change the manifesto itself, right? It's already been changed multiple times.
So is the Bible multiple times.
Nobody's disputing that. But what I'm saying is that inside of this, if you have a collection of people who say, for instance, to, I don't know, lock up all children, right? Prescriptively, that's what humanists decide is going to help the most when it comes to knowledge of the world being derived by observation, experimentation, and rational analysis. They're using rational analysis to determine children need to be locked up until they get to a certain age. What inside of the Humanist manifesto itself is demonstrating that that should not happen? What is it? What can you point to anything in it?
The reduction of harm. Andrew, you keep
Where,
coming
which
up
is
with-
where?
You keep
Where
coming up-
is it?
Right, again,
Where is it?
I'm not going to use the exact words that are in it because
They're not in it.
Because that's
Because
we're
they're not
the
in
Bible
it.
either, right? I'm not going to use the exact words. We're going to use what it represents, and what it represents is to not do harm. You keep coming up with things that are harmful, right? Let me get this.
Now we're
conclusion.
having the literalist
Second
versus
humanism.
metaphoric interpretations, like
Yeah.
in the Bible.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. The fact that he doesn't even know as well is what makes it so funny. It highlights that he has never engaged with anything beyond the childhood version of Christianity.
And to be clear, like, he, after Shane Gillis, he is probably the most Down syndrome looking person who doesn't have Down syndrome that I've ever seen.
Shane Gillis is quite impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Will not do something that purposely causes harm.
Did I just hear somebody whisper? Oh, sorry. My wife is whispering behind me. Hold on, I'll turn off my camera so she can come in.
You keep saying
Who determines what harm is?
Can you let me talk?
Who
Thank you.
determines what harm is, Craig?
Collective experiences and empathy.
So if
Andrew.
collective experience says
But
this
they
isn't
don't.
harmful,
Collective experiences say that it is harmful, though. That is what collective.
but what if it
experiences show.
didn't, Craig?
But what
What
if-
if the collective experience
But
but
they
they
say
says
collective
that's not
experience
harmful?
But they do,
would
Andrew.
But
agree
in-
with me. I am the collective.
Yeah.
Not you. You're an individual. Me, myself, I'm a collective.
By the way, you guys, my wife brought me tea.
Look at this tea, geez. Oh, wait. Whoops. Going down through the clouds. Oh, we have that, and we have. Remember when? I remember when I lost me.
Classic. That's another great mind. I'd like to see him
He's
debate.
better than Craig. He's better than Craig, unironically.
Yeah, no, he did do a better job than Craig. But it would be interesting to see them both debate. Craig versus the Big Bear. It'd be subtitle "When Great Minds Collide."
I think Owen would have trolled him much better. Andrew, you can see he's not in a very good mood, which is probably why the comedy was a bit toned down.
Yeah. Andrew's just so frustrated because he's being forced. Like, you would never have expected that this guy wouldn't have understood even the basics of what he was doing.
I debated Dillahunty. It's the same thing. I just, and then you start fumbling your words because you're trying not to call him a cunt, basically.
If they didn't, though.
Right. Well, in the same way, what if God said that you could do whatever
What
you
if he
want?
did? Answer my question.
Well, but collective experiences don't. It's a logical impossibility under the framework.
The unanswer of
under
the
the
first question
framework-
loses, Craig.
Under
Answer
the
my question.
Under the framework of secular humanism,
Uh-huh.
that is a logical impossibility to do, right?
What is
I do not have
okay.
to answer things that will
Let's
never
start,
happen.
Let's start
right?
with what does logical impossibility mean?
It means that it's something that is logically impossible as a conclusion.
You can't
from-
use the words to describe the words, Craig.
Yes, you can.
What does logical impossibility mean?
It means that it is something that would not.
Even the fact that he said yes, you can.
He should have just kept quiet. Yes, you can. What's a tree? Well, it's that tree thing that grows out of the ground.
It's just reminding me of that state of mind of not even knowing that you're the problem in the conversation. It doesn't even matter if he's wrong or right. It's just not even realizing that you're not operating on the same level at all.
not come as a result of conclusions of what's happening. If you look at the overall, if you look at the overall conclusions of what secular humanism gives, and look at that, the outcome it would be
My
a logical
question is, what does logical
And I'm trying to
impossibility
answer.
mean?
I'm trying to answer. It means that it is something that if you look at the overall conclusions of something and look at it logically, the outcome is an impossibility. If you look at all the conclusions of secular humanism, what it tries to promote, the logical impossibility of
Okay. Pause it
logical-
and tell me, how would you, if you were, I'm asking you right now, define logical impossibility.
Logical impossibility. Logical impossibility without using the word logic.
I mean?
Yeah, like it's something which how would I define it? Something which is impossible based on something which fails to pass the laws of logic. See, I find myself wanting to use the word something which is incoherent. It's something which is irrational to how we. How would I define it?
Well, you can just say something like a conclusion that cannot be drawn from the premises, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
You can just say that.
See,
but
you say you could just say that, but you mean you could just say that?
Okay, fair enough. I am a smart-hearted person, but just say it's an impossible outcome. So you can use the word logic, by the way. You can use the word impossible. You just can't use the phrase logically impossible to define. So following the laws of logic, you cannot come to that conclusion, and that conclusion would be this would be an outcome.
Yeah, I would have went with the laws of logic probably if I was in the spot.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's not about not using the words themselves individually because that impossibility, it's a logical impossibility. So the logical is the
I understand.
qualifier. Okay, so it's what Craig is trying to defend. He's saying, well, we would never do harm, so we would never end up with a proposed I don't know solution that would cause harm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that is one of the most infantile things I've ever heard. As if you don't have to make decisions that are the lesser of two evils all the time, and that is a very, very fine-tuned, balance that you try to find, because very often you can make the wrong conclusion. So it's I say infantile because a child thinks like this. Right, I play games for 10 hours. I'm thriving.
Yeah. Even beyond that, it's just it's the childishness of saying, "Oh, a secular humanist would never come to this conclusion." It's almost it's not. It's almost the no true Scotsman fallacy.
It's not almost. It is the no true Scotsman. No
if he
true
means it, if he means it the way
humanist
would
conclude. The no true Scotsman. So no one puts
No
sugar
true
in their
Scotsman.
porridge. A Scotsman never puts sugar in his porridge. Well, Angus does. Well, no true Scotsman. So you start creating these concentric circles that cut out things that would debunk you, right?
Mhm.
So if we were to argue about transing the kids, two secular humanists could disagree on that. But he would say, well, the studies show, by the way, they never do, but the studies show. And are they replicable studies? No. What is the sample size? Well, we found like 2 people. So they have nothing. They just have like a presupposition. Well, if you're a good person, you're a secular humanist and you wouldn't do any harm, and it would be harm to deny hormone therapy to a 7-year-old to block puberty because he likes the color pink, right? And then a secular humanist says, I disagree with that. How do you resolve it? Well, you look at studies. Okay, how do you look at studies of things that have barely been studied as of now? Right, we are very early in the game, so the damage is being done, but we will not have a good summary of the damage done until some time has passed and the consequences of the actions materialize. Similarly to how we can now look back at a certain event from that range from about 2020 to 2022, and approach certain things with some with a lack of urgency. Mask mandates. Peter Hitchens in 2020, early 2020, was shouting from the rooftops about a Danish study done in Copenhagen about the inefficiency of masks to do what they did.
Yeah.
And about it, but he is an evil Christian, just to be sure. So he probably got it from like praying, and they had the Holy Spirit overcame him. Right? Where were the secular humanists then?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
were they when you have urgency and you can't just have your and I will use this term bourgeois, because bourgeois means city people. That's what bourgeoisie means, is the city dwellers. Were comfortable, and they were middle class, right? So they can work their little office jobs from home, and they were saving Nan by locking people down who had to go to work and couldn't feed themselves. And this probably, I guarantee, if we look at his stance on that thing, that we will find that he was for everything, because you don't do harm.
Right, and they're all Machiavellian liars as well, right?
Yeah, because they're defending the greater good. Bloody Tau bastards.
Yeah. You hear Edward Dutton talks about that, about how, he did.
Yes.
Do you watch Edward Dutton? Yeah.
Sometimes,
he
not exhaustively.
He had an episode recently called "Everybody's Based." Liberals just pretend not to be. That was and essentially he was talking about that a lot of the time. That is actually what the data shows, is that people on the left side of the spectrum tend to be Machiavellian, tend to be higher in psychopathy, and are far more willing to fake their beliefs to go along with society. So huge swathes of them actually are.
And since we're on this topic, that the left is almost completely incapable of understanding the belief of right wingers.
Oh yeah, totally. And but he was pointing it out that like loads of them are secretly based, because it was this British politician who got caught recently, and what's his name? He's one of the guys who pushes for all these liberal agendas, and his text messages came out.
Oh God, no!
In his text messages, he was just saying like he was giving out about immigrants, and he was um,
Yes.
he was calling one of these a female British politician. He was saying she's basically just a tart from whatever area. He named some dodgy area that she's from, and started saying
Amy Badenoch.
Yeah, basically calling her a DEI, and all this kind of stuff, like proper. And then Edward Dutton's like, look, the reality is he's based.
Yeah,
We have to accept it. He's just a narcissist.
I have to watch that Edward Dutton video. I didn't see that. As I said, I only occasionally watch him. I watched him on the Lotus Eaters with the coverage of the election.
Yeah,
and he was pretty, what do you say? A very good chair. Is that what you say in Ireland? It was making fun of David Cameron. And it was so strange. He's sort of like me when I'm drunk. I don't lose sophistication in like vocabulary. I lose sophistication in articulation. His father hasn't got any legs, and anytime he would say something, he would say, "Well, yeah, you're stupid, and your father hasn't got any legs." It's so hilarious. It's almost like watching Norm. You can't replicate it.
Yeah.
But when you see it, you feel it. It's the common human experience, collective human experience.
Yeah. And he's such an odd character. When I interviewed him on my channel, it was the most difficult interview I've ever done. It's just because you don't notice it when you're just listening to him or just watching him. You don't really think about it, but he's got this intensity of gaze, and he makes very odd facial expressions.
Yeah.
So I found myself totally thrown by him, because the whole time he was looking at me as if he loathed me. And I think he was just in a rush. You know, he was just like, let's get through this. Come on, boom, boom, boom. And it just totally threw me. I forgot everything I wanted to ask him. I had a total blank, and it was so terrifying. But he,
You know?
and then my
Like,
camera
this
stopped working,
voice
and my
cast, when one of their friends is a cameraman, and he was filming Jordan Peterson for some speech or whatever, and he said he was stressed for days because he basically had Jordan Peterson yell at him for 2 hours. No, you don't do it. And he's the cameraman, so he's facing him.
People up and
Great
causing harm
times.
comes from looking at those the entirety of secular humanism. You
Is-
keep coming up with questions of
is
what if
Wolverine-
they locked people up?
Yeah, I
what
just
if
wanna-
they
I
did
just
that?
wanna make sure we
It's
got
not
this
something
right.
that would happen in secular
Is
humanism.
Wolverine
Oh,
from the
never.
X-Men logically impossible?
Wolverine is from the X-Men, specifically the first.
No.
iteration
The
of X-Men.
character, the Wolverine from the X-Men, the adamantium claws, the healing powers, is that logically impossible?
Using Copenhagen's interpretation of quantum mechanics, no.
No, it's not logically. So Wolverine is not logically impossible, right?
It could exist in a number of universes,
Got
as far
it.
as we know.
But what is logically impossible is that a bunch of people can't get together and change what the meaning of harm is.
Well, again. But Andrew, you are missing the point of what collective experiences show us. We look at collective experiences throughout the world and we can see what harm is. You are just saying, well, what if they changed what harm is? But as humans, we know
Yeah,
what
Craig,
harm
what
is.
if they change what
Are-
the meaning of harm is, Craig?
You got 3 words out there, Andrew.
Can you answer
I-
the damn question, Craig?
I'm trying to, Andrew, and if you let me, that would be wonderful.
Oh, well, but you see, the thing is that without answering the question, the question never gets
I
answered,
am
and so we're
answering
never
the
going to actually
question.
answer
If
the
you
question
ask-
because
if you
answering the
Getting
question
very
is an unanswered
already.
question.
Yeah,
And what do they change the definition of harm, Craig?
yeah, Andrew, I'm trying to let me answer the question. They won't change the definition of
Oh,
harm.
they won't.
No.
But Wolverine's logically
Okay,
possible.
so secular humanism looks at what happens as experiences, and throughout humanity, we can know that locking people up and doing harm is a bad thing because it makes bad things happen. It makes people unhappy. It causes harm. It makes society a worse
What
place.
about when it doesn't cause harm, like when we lock criminals up?
So, the idea of locking criminals up, at least in the decent countries,
Does it reduce
is to-
harm, Craig?
Yes. When you
Yes. Wait. So you just saying
I'm-
locking,
wait,
locking
no, I'm
people
trying
up,
to- Andrew,
locking
wait,
people up is going to
Andrew,
reduce harm. Well,
Andrew,
am I allowed to
you're right,
talk?
Craig.
Am I allowed to talk?
Well, Craig, you've
Andrew,
been
am
doing
I allowed
nothing
to
but
talk?
talking.
Andrew, am I allowed to talk?
Yes, Craig,
Yes,
you're allowed
Andrew,
to
am I allowed
talk.
to talk?
Yes, Craig.
Right, Andrew, what
But
I
how
need you
long
to
are
do-
you going to talk?
Andrew, am I allowed to talk?
For how long at once, though?
Okay, so you are being a flat earther here.
Oh, you're being an ethical flat earther.
What you're doing is you're not
He
allowing
is
the
so
other person
low
to talk.
tier,
You're just
I
laughing
can't
at
Because
each
you
other.
want to answer any
Yeah.
questions.
And he
trying
doesn't. It's the fact that he
to
doesn't
answer
even
the
know.
question,
It's not
but
even
every time I do-
It's not
tactical.
an answer, it's filibuster.
I think
no,
he's
you don't understand
entering a
its answers,
panic.
Andrew.
Yeah, and he's sort of just filibustering in the worst quality possible. Can I answer? Can I
You're
answer?
not a very
Please,
intelligent
please.
person. But I'm not
One
sure.
day, Craig, I'll get to your level.
So, would you like me to answer any of your questions, or are you going
Yes,
to
I
let
would
me get
actually
3
like
words
the
in?
answers.
You see,
And-
he's buying time.
If you treat this in good faith and you actually answer my questions, I'll actually answer yours. But don't filibuster.
trying to.
Hang on. Don't filibuster and don't lie. Simple. Is it not the case that people change what the definition of harm is all the time? And by necessity, they have to do that, Greg, right? You have to change what the definition of harm is. So when you say, Andrew, it's logically impossible that people would change the definition of harm so that you could lock women up to do X, Y, Z to them, that's not actually logically impossible, is it?
Under the tenets of secular humanism, yes, it is.
Then show me where.
Secular humanism is about not doing harm and
No,
making
no,
other
show me
things
where.
unhappy.
Show me where in the humanist document it conflicts with this, since it says we can change our definition of what harm is anytime we want.
But the definition of harm is what it is. We know what harm is.
No, we don't know what harm is.
Yes, we do. Our collective experiences show us
Making
if we
people
make
unhappy.
People unhappy.
Yeah, that's literally what he said.
We make them die. We make them injured. That is harm. And as society, we can get together and say, well, we don't want those bad things to happen. What makes people depressed?
Yeah, but
what makes people... Andrew,
You
I
can
am in
do
the middle
all
of
those
answering your
things,
question.
and it can reduce harm
Oh,
too.
Right.
God.
Andrew, I will answer your question, but you might need to let me get there.
Go ahead,
to
Craig.
set
Go
my
ahead. Go-
set
yeah,
my
go
stage.
ahead, Craig.
Right?
Calm down.
The problem is that you do not want.
Oh, he's setting a complex stage.
Yeah,
Before he-
to
yeah,
say
before-
making people sad.
to hear the ansers. You just want your
Craig,
script
stop
to be.
talking.
I'm not going to
Just
stick
get
to
the
your
answer.
script.
Get to the answer. Go.
Right. Do not talk. Let me answer. Because I've let you yap for ages. Good boy. Right. So, doing harm is, everyone knows what harm is.
That's all filibustering.
No, that's what's in
So,
question.
so
here
if
we
you
go.
roll it back
I
10
let-
seconds,
That's literally what's-
he kept complaining for a long time from very minute changes in angle. And then he says, all right, so, harm.
know what harm
These
is.
are all
Yes, you
delaying tactics.
Our collective experiences show us, right, get there.
Go ahead,
to
Craig.
set
Go
my,
ahead. Go-
set
yeah,
my
go
stage,
ahead,
right?
Craig. Calm down.
The problem is that you do not want to hear the answers. You just want your
Craig,
script
stop
to be,
talking.
I'm not going to
Just
stick
get
to
the
your
answer.
script.
Get to the answer. Go.
Right. Do not talk. Let me answer. Because I've let you yap for ages. Good boy. Right. So, doing harm is, everyone knows what harm is. Everyone knows that harm
No,
makes...
that's what's in question.
See, here we go.
That's literally what's in question is whether or not
I'm
everyone
trying
knows
to
what harm
lay
is.
I'm trying to lay the foundation for my answer. If you let me get more than 3 or 4 words out, a few sentences at a time, Andrew, then this debate can happen. But you just want to overtalk me.
I'll give you
right?
a chance, Craig. Go ahead, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Right. So, as a collective, we can get together and say, what makes you unhappy? What makes you hurt? What stops you from advancing as a human? And that is harm. We can get a bunch of injured people together and say, how did that happen? This is harm. How do we stop these things? This is harm. What makes you unhappy? This is harm. And we can look at what makes that happen. You are trying to come up with a situation where harm can just be changed and we can make harm not mean having harm. But that's not what secular humanism does, because as a society, as a collective as individuals, we would come up with to not do that to make everyone happy. People aren't going to be happy if we do that.
Kick it
Secular
back to
humanism
Andrew.
wants people being happy.
Okay, then Craig, I just have a simple question for you. When it comes to child transition surgery, right, we have a split on whether or not that's harmful. Who should I side with? Who should I side with?
The position that is something that I wouldn't want to get into because...
Oh, yeah. So,
Am I allowed to get my thoughts out?
What about
It's so obvious. Everyone knows what harm is. There's nothing. What are you talking about, Andrew? But I don't want to talk about that.
tap into that collective experience, damn it.
harm?
Yeah.
My harm!
I didn't say I wasn't going to. I would say it's something I wouldn't want to. But again, I'm not allowed to get my words out here. Right. So as a collective society, we would get together and see what happens. And that is going through changes at the moment. Personally, I don't agree with that, right? And the current position within secular humanists seems to be that allowing children to transition is something that causes harm, right? That is the position that I personally hold when I look at the evidence and what other
That's his
secular
personal
humanists are saying, is that
interpretation.
allowing children to transition causes harm because children are not at a place where they are able to make that decision. Their brain is not fully developed, and especially people with, if we look at neurodivergence, neurodivergents actually have a much higher percentage of wanting to transition and things like that, and that could be an effect of them being neurodivergent. So we have to look
Is this guy secretly based?
at individual cases, but personally, children in
Is he saying they're all autists?
transition because they are not ready
yeah.
to make that decision. Their brains aren't fully developed until they're like the age of 25. So letting children do that before they have the ability to is in itself causing
Got it.
harm.
So then what's going on here is, just so you understand, I just demonstrated something very important to you. You said we know what harm is.
Yes.
Our collective experience demonstrates what harm is. Then I ask you a simple question. There's 2 different collections of people right now. One who believes that this is very harmful, and one, like you, who believes it's not very harmful.
And which one of those are secular
Which
humanists?
one of those, well, humanists themselves disagree. Matt Dillahunty, who's a humanist, for instance, is right as we speak, probably sucking lady balls, right? Like, that's actually true. So,
Matt
hang
Dillahunty
on,
isn't here.
Stop.
Matt
Hey,
Dillahunty isn't here, though.
stop, bro. It's my
Matt-
turn,
yeah.
bro. My turn, calm down.
I'm
Calm
not
down,
Matt
bro,
Dillahunty.
calm down. It's my
I'm
turn.
not Matt Dillahunty,
Calm down.
right?
I didn't say a word.
Let me
I'm not going to run
speak.
away
I didn't say a word. I didn't tell you to
things,
run.
okay?
I didn't tell you anything. Calm down.
Right.
So anyway, back to where we were. What I'm saying is, he's a humanist. You're a humanist. Clearly, you fucking disagree about this.
Does Matt,
So-
does
stop,
Matt
bro.
just ask a quick question.
Would you
Does he say specifically
Craig,
that he thinks children should transition?
Craig, calm down.
I'm just asking a question.
Craig,
Is
calm
that
down.
what he says?
Yes, but anyway, calm down.
I don't think that's what Matt says.
Humanists themselves, okay? Humanists themselves disagree.
Which
They
ones?
disagree. Stop, bro. Would you chill out for 2 seconds? They
He's
did
panicking.
themselves disagree on even what a man is. They disagree on the prescriptions for children.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do, and they disagree about.
I think we're also witnessing a certain amount of cognitive dissonance here, right? Like
Oh yeah,
there's legitimate sort of pain going on because he has never in his life looked deeper than the very basic, like low tier sort of expressions of like all we have to do is avoid harm.
yep. He's basically saying like there are. Oh, do we go and start skinning children alive and putting salt, throwing them in a vat of salt? Obviously, we don't. like that's those are the only types of questions that arise. So here, he doesn't know what to do because he knows. Even he said, "I wouldn't want to get into it." Right? Well,
Yeah.
it's probably the most prominent question societally aside from immigration. Right? Maybe, and that's a very big maybe. Because his entire point is, oh, you need to let your brain develop. And I was arguing about this like on 9gag, like back in 2012 or something. So you can imagine. And you had people who were still not like mad about this. And I mean mad as in insane, not angry.
Mm-hmm.
So, and people were arguing in good faith. That's what I mean. And they said like, well, doesn't it make sense to do it before they start accumulating these secondary sexual characteristics? If a boy can become a girl, right, and that's something we would definitely not agree could happen, but if we were to presume it could, wouldn't it make sense to then stop the puberty process from going through and doing all the things like broadening the shoulders, facial hair, the body hair in all sorts of ways, like those changes to interdict them at an earlier stage, because it would make the transition easier. Right? That would be their argument. What he's saying here would be disqualified for detractors from his position with what I just said.
Yeah.
And then you would have to adjudicate. And
Exactly.
then even additionally, what if it works for some, doesn't for others?
Now you're causing harm.
Well, you need to delineate. That's sort of the whole bloody thing in question.
All of these things within the very same framework you're talking about. The thing is like, that's fine. You can grant that humanists can disagree. As the peanut gallery was telling you, you can make the same criticism about the Bible. Theologically, people disagree all the time. Totally fair argument. What's not a fair argument is for you to say that it's logically impossible for us to redetermine what harm is under humanism. Of course we can redetermine what harm is under humanism. Why couldn't we? Why?
Because their collective experiences as humanity show us what harm is. And if we look at what has happened in the past with humanity, and we try to change it to go back to when it was harmed, that would go...
It's actually an interesting point Ape with Agency makes. This is definitely painful. We could maybe argue that Craig is causing harm.
Against what secular humanism is. But to be clear, all secular you are just lumping all kind of LGBTQ stuff as secular humanists. That's not just secular humanists that hold those positions.
Okay, and he repeats his misunderstanding of this for a little while.
Right. So no one's saying that's it, because you can have religious LGBTQ people, right? It doesn't mean they're Christian. It doesn't mean they have to be Muslim, right? They can be some tertiary thing. They can be, I'm going to feel sick saying it, Episcopalians, right? They can be that leather that berated Trump about immigrants.
She's a bishop, Posh. You should have respect.
And she was a recipient of $53 million for for taking care of immigrants.
I hate the way they say bishop as if the word carries weight when you apply it to just anybody.
Yeah.
She's a bishop.
There are multiple people right now claiming to be the Pope. they tend to be like sort of crazed, like a set of accantist Catholics.
Okay.
And they start the like a trailer park pope. But, so really not a lot of weight behind that. Additionally, me as an Eastern Orthodox, like I find it difficult to accept like a bishop without a beard. Like I'm male.
Yeah.
Beard, let alone a lesser.
Something tells me she wouldn't be adverse to trying to grow one. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
set that as your standard.
Well, she's got shorter hair than I do.
Right.
Go ahead.
So once again, we don't need a normative authority. We don't need a one set of particular rules. What we need is a framework that we can get together and discuss to assess what is going to happen. We don't need a one particular person or one person's interpretation or one divine commandment to follow. We
don't need a normative authority?
No, we don't. Why would we?
Like everything he's been saying, like why would we? Like everything, it's bizarre.
Right, no. We'll just get together with some, tea and biscuits, and we'll take care of stuff.
And we'll decide what the rules are.
Yeah,
and then we'll tell everybody.
Yes,
but no normative authority.
He just keeps appealing to like the stupidest things ever. It's like a high school girl who gets into a cause, saving the puppies or whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, I have to answer the phone. You can play it.
You have a collective of people who decide based on your manifesto, and they're interpreting it to give you prescriptions. What do you call that?
Not a normative authority, because
what is it?
It's not.
What is it?
It is a framework that you would get together and discuss.
No, not the framework. I'm not saying that the framework is your normative authority. Like you said, that's a framework.
Yeah,
all the people who get together to decide the prescriptions based on the framework would be referred to as a normative.
No, that normative authority is a single thing, right? Not a collection of people.
Do you know what a normative authority even is, Craig?
Give me your definition of it, then.
No, Craig, I'm not going to give you your definition for normative authority. What is it?
It's a description for something coming from a particular set of rules.
Look it up real quick, Craig.
Oh,
I'm going to stop. I'll stop.
Right, tell me if I'm wrong.
Pull up normative authority.
Right. Yeah. Tell me if I'm wrong.
So normative, philosophically, right? It's like an ought claim, right? What we ought to do.
Yeah.
If you have a normative authority, what is that doing? It's an authority expressing what you should be doing. So in the church, right, we would be referring to our ecclesiastical authority as our normative authority, meaning here's our framework, here's our church framework, this is our normative authority telling us what we ought to do. Same thing with the Bible, a normative authority telling us what we ought to do. If you have a bunch of people who get together and they make prescriptions based off of this manifesto that you're supposed to follow, those would be called what?
Okay. Right.
What would they be called, Craig?
I can see I'm wrong.
What would okay.
Okay.
Got
right.
it.
Okay.
So hang on.
Right,
and by the way, that's the
right.
first time ever. Congratulations, Craig.
I want to be clear.
Congratulations, Craig.
Right? I want to be clear. Right? This is only my second debate within this field, and I might not be completely up to date on all the vernacular and everything. So if I get certain words wrong and stuff, hey, I'm going to hold my hand up.
And I'm not going to hold it. I'm not going to hold that against you, dude.
Right?
So I'm not going to hold it against you. Go ahead.
The point I'm trying to make is, instead of going to like a single position, like the God says, right? Instead, what we do is we get together and we decide collectively based on what we feel is better to stop the harm. Okay? And
when people disagree.
Okay, right. I can see that I was wrong on that point. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is normative
my
authority,
whole point
right?
here isn't to beat you up about being wrong in a debate. I'm wrong in debates all.
But even the fact that there isn't this ties back to everything he's misunderstood since the start.
Yep.
It's just we're back to square one again, Craig. Now, can you tell me why my propositions are how can you refute them?
He's going to have dreams about this for a week.
I'd be interested to go and see on his channel how he's responded to it, because I guarantee he is not responding to it in a contrite manner. I'd say he's just saying that Andrew overtalked him, and You know, I wouldn't say he's admitting to anything.
He's talked a lot more than Andrew, and if you look at the comments under the video, so, well, because he's making complex points. Like, no, he isn't making he's
No.
making not just you can make complex, stupid points. He's making very simple, stupid points, and taking a lot of time and words doing it.
Yeah.
It's called circumlocution, and he's not even good at it, because someone who can engage in circumlocution well, it gets difficult to spot.
I'm just not in this one. What
It's
I'm
how we learn,
saying,
right?
what I'm saying, what I'm saying to you, what I'm saying to you here, Craig, is just this: if you have to have a normative authority, people who get together who make prescriptions, right? What they're doing is they're using your framework. So in Christianity, we would do the same thing. We're going to use the framework of the Bible, the teachings of Jesus Christ, and then we're going to have a normative authority, an ecclesiastical structure, which helps interpret that framework so that we know what we should or shouldn't do. Now, this is the same exact thing you're doing. But the thing is I can use the framework, which is the Bible, to debunk the prescriptions that I've made against the manifesto. You can't do that with your manifesto. That's my point.
Right. Again, you're using the manifesto wrong.
Okay.
You're misreading the Bible.
So at this point, 20 minutes from now, we get into the closing statements. Are we going to take bets? Does he understand? Does he at least realize where he slipped up? What went wrong?
And the deterioration in his confidence as the thing goes on.
That's what's amazing.
Palpable.
Yeah, because I had only just watched him, the way he was speaking to Jim Bob, that arrogant attitude that he has, that kind of looking down his nose attitude, and to see him just sniveling and like a hurt puppy is just hilarious.
Yeah, and Jim Bob, by the way, just bulldozed him.
Oh yeah, that's why it was so frustrating, because Jim Bob was bulldozing him, but he was, the way he was in the beginning of this debate, he was acting as if Jim Bob was an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yeah, like,
and I think there's sort of a comfort that he got from being home, debating. There's a comfort to it. Maybe he has his doilies up, so he's relaxed. But being in front of people and judging by the reactions of the crowds, his supporters were outnumbered. So he there's a level of stress that induces, and there's also no way out. He can't just say, "Oh, my power went out, my internet went out," etc. So, I think that's what was happening, because with Jim Bob, even he had the potential out. So even if you don't use it, how Sun Tzu says that if you corner an enemy, always give them an avenue of escape, because if they know they can't escape, they'll just fight to the death. Better to have a glorious death. But if they, even in the back of their minds, even if they think there's a way out of this potentially, it will interdict the manifestation of this, final push further.
The other thing that I wonder, though, whether it's that, or is it honestly that he doesn't, like, as the way intelligence often is described, people don't get that. They think it's just like processor speed in a computer.
Yeah.
There's an aspect of intelligence which is if you imagine that logic is like a black box, or your rationale is a black box, that you've got, like, like in circuit theory, when you have a black box and you've got inputs and then you've got an output. Right?
I don't know that.
Okay, well, yeah. So you've got a black box, you've got inputs, you've got an output, which is like a logical response. Right? A very intelligent person might have the capacity to handle like 12 inputs.
Right.
Right? And a very stupid person might have the capacity to handle like 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and then feed them into their logic box, and the logic within the box can be equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
but because you can only see 2 inputs at a time, the
I
person
see what
who's
you mean.
the person who's processing 12 actually looks stupid to you because you're like, no, hold on, red, blue, logic, right? And they're
Yeah,
saying, and they've got all these other inputs that they're using, and you don't see them at all and can't possibly put them together with that.
This is why I was always horrible at teaching people stuff, because I make how I learn things. I just integrate them into like all sorts of things. I'm not saying this is some mega input capacity, uh, but it's a similar thing. I connect it to other things. So when I had a girlfriend back in high school, and I was teaching her, helping her with French, preparing for a test. Trust me, that joke was not just used, but and then I thought, because she also had Latin. My failure to account for the fact that she was horrible at it. Like, oh, you know how in Latin you do this. She told me to fuck off. Basically. I thought I was helping, because this principle applies there, and you can also then see how that developed into this particular aspect of French grammar. Did not help at all. But that's
I can
how
imagine.
and as you have experienced, I shoot off on tangents all the time because I just go to someone. Okay, now how does this branch out? And then I try explaining stuff, and we end up talking about like music theory, as last time showed.
Yeah.
But that's just how my brain works, and it makes for a horrible didactic principle. Because you're confusing people more than you're helping them, because their points of reference are completely different.
Yeah, for sure. And they can kind of get lost in the tangents, and they're going off on their own tangents as well.
Yes.
In their own mind, and it just leads to nobody's
That's
learned anything.
right. That's why the principle in didactics is don't overstretch. Try to keep it as close to the original material as possible. Now, if I know someone knows Latin well enough, I could use that, but that's because I'm not just superimposing my points of reference onto you. But at the same time, as we see in this debate, because this isn't about me, so he's got the input that he has is don't make people sad and be reasonable, right? And he doesn't have any even ancillary, like additional feeds into those two. Like they're just given, and he already has a notion of them. So Andrew sounds stupid for
To
trying
him.
to say harm. The definition of harm can change, and only when presented with a great practical example does this fall apart, because now you have to apply this whole thing, which hitherto was only an abstract, only a consideration to talk about. Well, if I always like to say like the zombie apocalypse thing. I saw a similar one, so I'll change it up. Today I saw, I don't know which game it is, Warhammer game, that you have like the medical servitors that
I
are
don't know.
attached to like a wall.
Yeah, I don't know which game.
I just saw a YouTube short today, and they just, because they're not completely mind wiped, they need to retain some cognition to be medical servitors, and they just complain, like, help me.
Oh, is this in the most recent one? Maybe is this in the? This is.
I maybe, but it was in first person, and I'm not sure how first person the Space Marine 2 is. Because Space Marine 1, I know that even with guns, I don't think it goes into first person. Nevertheless, it probably is. The comment said, people think they'd be Titus in Warhammer, but this is what they would actually be. You'd be some servitor crying out for help because it's all pain and suffering.
Let's hear the closing statements.
The Soviet Union
no,
had
no,
a
no,
stop.
sorry,
stop.
Soviet Union is not
It
secular.
had a secular constitution, Craig.
It's not. It's
It
not
is
They had
secular.
a secular constitution. It killed all the Christians off immediately
let me be
because
clear.
they were bad.
Let me be clear.
They were
Hold on.
bad.
I'm
The
off.
Russians were never secular humanists.
They were.
No, the Russians were never secular humanists.
They were secularists.
That's it. Is a secularist a secular
Can
humanist?
communists be humanists?
Is a secularist a secular humanist? Are they the same thing?
No, I think in this case that the communists there have something very akin. Their ideology.
Andrew, that's what not I asked. I said,
I think
is secularist.
This is
yeah,
the same
I'm
wall
already
that
saying I'm giving you distinct
Jim Bob
categories.
faced.
I said no. That's
Right.
not
Well,
the case.
well, then it doesn't matter because
It
I'm
does
not
matter.
a secularist. I'm a secular
I
humanist.
know,
They're different.
and I'm tying them together so that you understand.
But
What I'm saying is that
you can't just
secularists,
tie your own things together.
secularists have been in charge before, and if they have the same type of stop,
secularists
bro,
or secular
stop.
humanists?
Are you going to ever let me talk?
Yeah, but I'm not a secularist. This isn't about secularism. This is about secular humanism. So you
No, I said it's
the
actually
Russians
okay.
were never secular humanists.
Okay,
right?
Fine, Craig. Let's back up.
Even though it
Let's
says
just say for a
Russians
second
instead
that
of
they weren't,
Soviets.
that Russians were not secular humanists. Then where are the effects of secular humanism? Where can we find them?
Again, well, the countries that are the happiest in the world
Are not secular humanists, Craig. Can't bring those up.
They are secular.
They are not
humanists.
secular humanists, Craig.
The
Which one?
majority of the people there in those countries are secular humanists.
Show me one.
Show you one.
Show me one country where the majority of people are secular humanists. One.
Most in the Netherlands.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Most of them.
Demonstrate it.
Yeah.
Google it. Google if most of the Netherlands are secular humanists. Go ahead.
All right. What? You want to do it
This-
yourself?
You can't do it? You want to?
This goes badly. What ends up happening is okay. There we go. Closing statements are I was off. What ends up happening here is that he shows him some proof, and Andrew reads it and realizes that it's one of his own blog posts, or it's like his own article or something.
Yeah.
and that he doesn't have
He's his own pope.
yeah, and it doesn't actually have it cited because he's lost the site. He's lost the link to where he got the information from.
It's glorious as it goes on. It took me like 5 hours to watch the entire thing because it really, really was bad.
Okay, let's see now.
And the incest part is also, but we're
How
only
they
going
come
to
about,
get
but,
through
for
2
me,
hours.
it's the ethics and the reason will be based on looking at what happens.
Logically possible.
The harm principle kind of relies on
Right. So that's how I feel about that.
Okay, I can't find it. Whatever. I seem to have lost it.
Not just my preferences.
Change framework which is used.
No, let's see. Where was it?
Where we find.
Oh. Oh.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so in 2021, a whopping 58% of Dutch people said that they were secular humanists and didn't
No.
belong to any religious. That got the information from that site.
Yeah, information from I made it up.
I made it up.
Yeah, source meth pipe.
Source meth pipe.
So yeah.
Okay, I can't find it. It's
Right,
bizarre.
that's not very
Okay.
Never mind. We should get to the closing statements. But, I mean, as long as James... do you have a time stamp for it?
That's what I can't find. I'm trying to find the closing
Oh,
statements.
I thought you were trying to find the Dutch thing.
Oh.
The closing
Put
statements.
against it, then
Okay,
B.
okay.
Put against it, then B.
It causes harm.
Yeah, it doesn't though. Under those circumstances, it has.
Closing statements aren't
Yeah,
after the
man,
Q&A,
like,
are they?
Problem.
Well, oh, goodness, right.
So they have to be before the Q&A.
Yeah, they have to have been before they went, because the debate part is over.
Martyr is
Right. Yeah.
a martyr for
This is
have the same type.
Why don't they have the
Okay,
bloody
so
thing spelled it out?
in 2021, a whopping 58% of Dutch. My computer at home.
Okay, great.
Now-
Oh yeah, it was on his
Yeah.
computer at
Just to be
home.
clear,
By the way,
go.
it's 9%. 9%. Just
9%
pointed out,
9% in
Anyway.
2015. 9% in
Waiting for your
2015.
count.
Yeah, it seems to go straight to... Am I getting
That's
something
not
wrong
very
here?
pithy.
I don't know.
So,
Quicker, come on.
yeah, so how would a secular humanist...
Oh, I'll check the video on YouTube.
YouTube.
You can let it play. I mean,
Yeah, I'll put on... Yeah, everybody just sit in silence.
yes. So as not to cause harm.
In the past, did that because of Christianity. That was part of society because of Christianity.
What would that have
So-
to do with the effects of society today? Nothing.
But society today isn't just because of Christianity. Society today is a melting pot. If we were to, it went back 500 years and took what Christianity was then and just carried that particular society on of just what they said Christianity was then, their interpretation of Christianity back then society would be, just for the people being stoned to death and people burnt at the stake.
What people are getting stoned to death?
But they're not right now, but that's not because
When
of
were they?
Christianity.
Like, when were they?
Whenever the Bible was written.
Okay.
Right?
Do you
But
realize...
that's the thing. Right? Hold on. My point is that the Bible is what Christianity is, right? And what you're doing is saying, well, as Christians now we don't do that, but that doesn't matter.
Craig,
Andrew, no,
that
hold
never
on.
happened. Let he who's without sin cast the first what?
So are you saying that no one ever got stoned to death for working on the Sabbath?
The first harm.
In Christianity?
Yeah.
Where?
Does it not say that in the Bible?
No.
Are you saying it doesn't say in the Bible?
You're talking about Jewish law.
Is that in the Bible? It's
Yeah,
part of
that's
the Bible.
Jewish law. That's not Christianity. That's not Christian ethics.
But
Are we here to argue Jewish ethics or Christian ethics?
But that's in the Bible, and it says that's what you should do, right?
No, it does. No, you have a set of prescriptions in the new covenant. New covenant.
So-
That's Christian ethics. That's the ethics Christians follow. We don't follow old covenant law. What are you talking
But
about?
it's still Christianity.
What? No, it's not.
So, what were the Crusades about then? Like wiping out half of Europe? Right?
That
How
was
is that?
no.
You know,
You didn't even know what that
We can
means.
get into the Crusades if you
let me-
want to.
let-
but
right,
Unless
let-
it means half
let
of
me-
Europe died during them.
And how did he get from stoning people on the Sabbath to the... Well, then, if it's not about that, then how come they wiped out half of Europe in the Crusades? Like, it's just...
Yeah, that's a substantial leap. Just to be clear, because I did talk to Andrew about this, I told him there were prescriptions for Israel that they were meant to keep, and a level of how shall we say, moral purity that they were expected to keep. Right, that would constitute the system, and that would stay until the Messiah comes and the covenant is renewed in its new iteration. So, if he's debating Christian ethics, it has come to a point. Think of it like how many laws are suspended during war. I'm blanking out. When we come to Christianity, the necessary prerequisites are in Acts 15, the council. They gathered and discussed things, as sort of we should if we were secular humanists, and decided that Disraeli. I wonder where he was from originally. Probably from Tartaria, but you have the implementation of the law is suspended because this was meant for Israel, old Israel, to keep during that time, and it is about moral strictness.
Mm-hmm.
So the same reason we don't circumcise, the same reason we don't follow all the dietary laws. This is also in the Bible. And it says the three things that are not allowed is idol worship, which is demon worship, sexual immorality, and eating the blood of animals, because that's seen as, how shall we say, you're basically sort of like eating its life. It's seen as too predatory. And that's why it is ordered that all the blood should be spilled onto the earth, which is a sort of a cycle. We're not saying magic blood and there's life stuff in it. That's a very, very materialistic imposition on the Bible. But it's saying you shouldn't do this because you need to have some restraint. Like, this isn't forever. So that's why we are not called all to be Jews, right? And follow the laws as they are. This new thing that is happening is because of all the stuff Christ did. Now, I won't get into that right now. Again, it's a massive topic, but he cannot comprehend that. And I compare it to wartime because the circumstances are different. in wartime, the government has more power. And that's actually for a very good reason. Because if you have to make decisions, you have no time for bureaucratic, sludge slowing everything down, because it's existential at that point. Much like the difference between killing and murder is the circumstances in which you end a life. So you're ending a life in both cases, but the circumstances are different. But so he's trying to say that we Christians should stone people. Like, no.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's like saying everyone who supports the death penalty is evil. Like, sure, you can try and make that claim. It usually ends up being a practical consideration of the possibility of being, innocent and found guilty wrongfully. But that doesn't mean anyone who supports the death penalty is evil. Like I do, but I don't think people who oppose it are evil or like mopey hippies who want to just protect the criminals. There are legitimate arguments on both sides.
It's also a very low level. It's a very sort of basic misunderstanding about the difference between Christianity and like Judaism, and
Not to mention all the magic blood that they believe they have, which isn't in the Bible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, when people claim to be adverse and to Christianity, and often they come at it from a perspective of having so much derision, and that they don't even really know like basic things like that. Like, you'll have people mention mixed cloth and
Yeah.
like these kinds of things, and you're just like, you haven't even really like looked at the basics of this. This is this is very silly.
Right. And by the way, that's again when some people try to say, oh, we can have LGBT because like that's the Old Testament. I specifically reference like the conclusion of the council in Jerusalem, described in Acts 15, recorded by St. Luke. Right. And sexual immorality is one of those. So yeah, we don't do the mixed fabrics thing. We also we can eat like dairy and meat. The reason they didn't eat and still don't dairy and meat is because, symbolically speaking, meat is like a death thing and milk is like a life thing. So all of these distinctions that are in the Bible are like practical incarnations of moral principles that you're supposed to maintain in a society. Right? That's what it teaches you. It teaches restraint. It's I compare it to like birthdays. Like we celebrate birthdays because it's a time to gather. It's a time to celebrate someone's life. It's a beautiful thing. And people then say, well, every day is like your birthday. What does it matter if the earth went around the sun once? Or the opposite, depending on how you look at it. Right? But then you don't have it, anything. You don't have any specialty to it. Like, you can't do that, actually. You can't celebrate every day like it's your birthday.
No.
And it loses all significance. You never hyper-focus on a certain thing. So all of these laws are sort of this, I don't know how to say other than incarnation, like praxis, that is supposed to have a moral instruction to it.
Yeah.
And it sets you apart, right? Look at how people react when they find out parts of China and South Korea eat dog. Oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. Like, okay, but that's how Indians see us for eating beef. So who's right? Oh yeah, but then they start talking about intelligence and well, this is a predatory animal, so the meat is different. And like, no, what you're doing is you're engaging in something the Bible is establishing with Israelites who were surrounded by pagans and didn't have the exact means yet to bring them in. They did in small cases, right? Trickle them in as they would convert. Again, no magic blood. But now Christianity is this massive thing, and it's being grafted onto the tree of life. which is Christ, his body, which is the church. That's what Israel is. And you wouldn't expect it to be a Greek who becomes a Jew. You were expecting to be a Greek who's now no longer a pagan Greek, but a Christian Greek. And that takes time to develop into its own idiom. Same with us Serbs. Initially, it was like Slavs generally, right? But then things differentiate as they go along, right? The Irish had a similar, had a specific experience with being converted to Christianity. The English, the French, etc., etc., etc. So they all develop in a certain idiom around the basics of that is dogma.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you have saints that arise in certain countries and affect how it develops. So this is all. I always use any chance to try and teach people about the Bible words because it really, really it has been discolored by people like Craig.
Yeah, and this style of argumentation.
Give you the stoning to death then, but let's talk about the Crusades. Oh, they believe different to us, so let's go and kill all of them. How is that good for society?
First of all, that's not what happened.
That it is what happened.
No, it's
they
not.
wiped out half of
Are you
Europe.
going to let me respond? Or do you want an answer to this?
Yeah.
Okay, the Crusades was a conflict between two different anytime two different ideologies come into contact, there's going to be problems. Spain had an encroachment from Muslims, from the Moors, forever and ever and ever. From the Byzantine Empire on, there had been issues going on in the undercurrent with Muslims and Christians, and it's because of land. Okay, it's because of land. I don't know if you know this or not, but there are two continent land bodies which are connected, one of which has what religion on it, and the other one of which has what religion on it, Craig?
Christians and Muslims.
Christians and Muslims, right? So what happens when they begin to intersect is they start to fight. That's what led up to the Crusades, okay? And the thing is sure, you can make all sorts of justifications. Catholics are crazy sometimes. What do you want me to say for why it is that they wanted to go over there?
Catholics are part of Christianity, right?
Depending on what it is they were fighting over. But Muslims also were pushing the boundaries every chance they got for the purpose of expansion. Now, here's the thing, Craig. Humanists would do this too. I can point to you a society which is secular by nature called the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had
Soviet Union is not secular.
It had a secular constitution, Craig.
It's not a secular
It had a secular constitution. It killed all the Christians off immediately
let me be clear.
because they were bad.
Let me be clear.
They were bad.
The Russians were never secular humanists.
They were.
No, the Russians were never secular humanists.
They were secularists.
Is a secularist a secular humanist?
Can communists be humanists?
Is a secularist a secular
God.
humanist? Are they the same thing?
No, I think in this case that the communists there have something very akin. Their ideology.
Andrew, that's what I asked. I said,
I think
is secularist the same as secular
I'm already
humanist?
saying I'm giving you distinct categories. I said no. That's
Right.
not the case.
Well, then it doesn't matter because
It
I'm
does
not
matter.
a secularist. I'm a secular humanist.
I know,
They're different.
and I'm tying them together so that you understand.
But
What I'm saying is that
you can't just tie your own things together.
secularists have been in charge before, and if they have the same type of stop,
secularists
bro,
or secular
stop.
humanists?
Are you going to ever let me talk?
But you're
Panic.
I'm not a secularist. This isn't about secularism. This is about secular humanism. So you
No, it's actually
the Russians
okay.
were never secular humanists.
Okay,
right?
Fine, Craig. Let's back up. Let's just say for a second that they weren't. That Russians were not secular humanists. Then where are the effects of secular humanism? Where can we find them?
Again, the countries that are the happiest in the world
Are not secular humanists, Craig. Can't bring those up.
They are secular.
They're not
humanists.
secular humanists, Craig.
The
Which
majority
ones?
of the majority of the people there in those countries are secular humanists.
Show me one.
Show you one.
Show me one country where the majority of people are secular humanists. One.
Most in the Netherlands.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Show me. Demonstrate it.
It's got Google. Right?
Yeah, Google it.
No.
Google if most of the Netherlands are secular.
Okay, and then we're back here again.
Moments from disaster.
Moments from disaster. Now, I'm going to have to start closing up here, Posh. Getting pretty tired.
Yeah, fair enough. You had a rough fight yesterday.
A rough fight.
From that spilled over from having a good time on Friday.
Oh yeah. I'm still quite hungover. So yeah,
Noodles.
eat noodles.
Trust me.
We don't eat noodles. We don't eat noodles in Ireland.
I'm suggesting
potatoes.
it as a medicine, like Chinese medicine always involves food. So just buy cheap noodles and trust me, because a lot of the hangover is the loss of electrolytes.
Yeah.
And if there's something packed with electrolytes, it's cheap food. So just and trust me, and you sweat if you eat the spicy variety, right?
Yeah.
And that helps, like, get some of the toxins out. So it honestly helps. I discovered it by accident because it's like a light thing to eat. And I was like, well, on this stomach, to eat meat is murder. Peter would be right in this instance. So I just had like a packet of noodles, and I cooked it, and I felt a lot better. And then you had have a bit of a nap after that. The body takes care of it because you're told what to drink, lots of water. Okay, but that doesn't replenish the electrolytes. So trust me. I'm almost a
I'm a doctor.
pharmacist. Appeal to authority.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks to everybody who's been here from the start. If you made it all the way, try and check in as soon as possible. Somebody asked, will we be covering the Gnostic informant debate? Yeah,
Depends on how it goes. It's currently on, by the way.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I'd be interested. We could try and maybe discuss it tomorrow.
I definitely have to watch it. It's like a job for me, literally.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just boring. In that case, we won't. This was funny because this is a dying breed. The secular humanist ones. I think what's coming isn't atheism. It's some type of deistic, new agey nonsense that's going to be very common. Not this. Like, it's falling apart, and it's pretty being destroyed by the trans ideology, because what happened there with Craig has happened on a large scale.
Yeah. Ihawa, Lochray, Era 1014, and thanks. Well,
how did you pronounce that second word?
Wa. Like Ihawa. What?
Mahaith.
It means night good. Good night. It means good night.
You know what's not good? The relation between spelling and pronunciation in Gaelic languages.
Yeah, we rise above petty concerns like consistency of sounds on letters and things like that. You have to.
I come from a language that literally is one letter, is one sound, always.
Yeah. That's what Japanese is like.
Kind of, but then they have, like, it's not letters except for n. It's
all sounds, yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, ki. It's not chi. That's for tea. Right? Da,
Yeah.
chi, tsu,
If you give it the little thing, then it's
Yeah. But they also have the kanji, so that, and then the hiragana and the katakana can be used differently. That's so Serbian, the simplest language possible to learn to read.
It's Serbian.
Yeah. We can do a stream. I'll teach you how to read Serbian Cyrillic in one stream.
Okay.
And nothing else, because you'll want to kill me. You'll bomb my car.
All right, great. All right, well, thanks everybody, and see you later. And I'm never going to drink again.
Sure.